another episode of Legendary Sickos, a Legendary Upside and Spike Week Best Ball Show. And I'm particularly excited for today's show. I'm not worried. I'm excited about today's show because, of course, as you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, we brought on a special guest, Mike Leone, for a special subject that I think hits close definitely to Mike's heart, but all of our hearts in the best ball space. We're coining it the Aren't You Worried show. And if you have played best ball at all, certainly if you listen to any best ball content over the course of the last couple of years, you've probably heard a lot of jokes around Aren't You Worried? But really, it kind of stems from a totally reasonable thought and question that we have another Mike-ism, Leone-ism. We may have jumped the shark on being worried about absolutely everything and questioning everything in all of best ball. And so we're going to dive into, how do we think about the fact that I think Mike coined it last week or a couple weeks ago when we did a show together, that he's getting more and more worried on every pick he makes in a best ball draft. But how do we balance the things that we're worried about with the upside cases and ultimately decide on who to draft? We're going to get into all that and some things that we are worried about or maybe not so worried about for 2024. But of course, Mike, did you ever think when you started making jokes about Aren't You Worried that it would become, one of the big bits in all of best ball?
I mean, you just never know. The terms that are used, I said usable weeks a few times, that became a thing. And there's tons of other terms from other people that
I stole a branch off of the usable week idea and made a company that was named after it.
I'm trying to think. Aren't you worried? Like, what first pops in my mind is like wide receiver cornerback matchups and like
Right.
Davis being like, aren't you worried Justin Jefferson faces Jair Alexander in week 17? And then it's just completely stemmed from here. So I've got a lot for this show, in specifics, macro. I got a lot. There's I don't even know where to start.
Tight, Leone. Please keep it tight.
Yeah.
Well,
we did establish Leone doesn't have a heart out. He made the bad decision of coming to this specific show without a hard out.
Over prepared.
Like for one of us to have
go
a
all
hard
day.
Out. He's like, all right, guys, I don't want to go too long, so I'm gonna have a hard out. So Pat and I are both like, no, got a hard out.
I should have scheduled one.
But Pat, anything to add before we kind of start to get in at a high level about being worried?
I mean, not a ton. I'm excited to dive into it. I think there's times it's good to be worried, right? Like sometimes being worried saves you, but then also I think you want to strategically go, I know there's reason to worry, but you guys are freaking out. No, I'm not going to freak out.
Yeah.
I think that's
sounds like who's not lurking in Discords while they're trying to fall asleep, seeing every single possible comment about every single possible player that could go wrong. I mean, you guys are taking this episode way too calmly. I'm here having a crisis of character, of confidence. My identity is on the line with every single player performance. I feel like you guys aren't taking this episode seriously enough, and I'm worried about that.
You're worried about the episode already?
That is great. 3 minutes in, and Leone is already he's not just worried about the things we're actually going to talk about today. He's worried about the overall episode.
That's how you know he's committed.
This is a commitment to this whole bit. But I do think, to kind of kick us off down this trail, I do think, like Pat said, I mean, you guys have said it, the whole like kind of funny joke about Aren't You Worried? It does stem from like a real thing that matters, which is like really analyzing the pros and cons of all these players. And I think where this conversation does kind of become fun is in that every single player in the player pool, starting at the 101, has things that not only like you could be worried about, you probably should be worried about. Every single player in the entire player pool. I mean, Christian McCaffrey, he is a running back, which is just naturally like initial. That's a concern. He's not like incredibly young. Like I could make up a lot of things to be concerned about every single player in the entire player pool. Justin Jefferson's like a 24-year-old already destined for the Hall of Fame. And he might have Sam Darnold throwing him the ball, right? Like there are things
lucky,
to be,
maybe.
If he's lucky. Yeah, exactly. we're probably rooting for Sam Darnold to be Justin Jefferson's quarterback. There are things to be worried about for every single player. But Mike, we can like start with you. Like, how do you start to think about that process of pros versus cons, and like, what are you valuing right on the worried side of things, you know, when you just like first start to dive into this whole, you know, 2024 season?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. Thankfully, like we have a pretty good process in place at ETR where we've got like our base projections, but then we've got a lot of like subjective levers we can pull in terms of like upside cases or downside cases for players. So after doing this for a few years, we've got a pretty good feel of like, okay, like this player, we think, you know, the market's higher on than us, and we see the upside case. We kind of know like how far we can push it before like we're really just fudging things. And then that gives us like, I guess we're still worried, but it gives us a little bit of confidence that like, okay, this price is just too much on this player. Or, you know, the reverse side, like, you know, we've docked this player, you know, like a Tyler Lockett type. It's like very boring upside case. And like, what does he really do for you? And like, we try and go as conservatively as possible, but like staying reasonable. And I think that helps us to kind of weigh like the upside and the downside is like having this base case, having the ceiling case, and like understanding like how far we can push it subjectively, you know, either up or down before it starts to get into the point of like, now we're just operating off of fear as opposed to logic. I think the one difficulty in that though is where there's still flaws in our approach is like there is sometimes some base assumptions that you make within pushing it as far as low as possible. So like the 1 year we had Kenny Galladay as a really good, you know, late round pick. And the assumption is like, well, as long as he's playing
On the team,
like, as long as he's on the team, and then he's like not even on the team, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like there are some times where you're like, dude, as long as this assumption A is right, which on surface seems like a pretty safe assumption, then we can't be wrong. And sometimes those assumptions are riskier than you think.
Yeah, because it's like the targets have to go somewhere, but like, what if it's a kind of easier, like if you're just like, if you're not trying to project out where they go, to just be like, yeah, but it's not gonna be the Galladay.
Yeah.
That's all I know.
Yeah. And
He
we
sucks,
do have a
right?
mechanism
Yeah.
to just send those targets to nobody, you know,
You
like
just have
in
like a
our-
bucket of like, I don't
like,
know.
yeah,
wide
no,
receiver
we
6 or
legitimately
whatever.
have
That's
a
the aren't
bucket.
you worried bucket.
Yeah,
That's
you
the
have an aren't you worried bucket.
we do, because it's like,
It's smart.
I mean, now we're getting more into projecting weeds than aren't you worried, but obviously you don't want to just throw volume at players who don't necessarily deserve it. I think there's a lot of that. You know, we can talk about the Dallas Cowboys at some point, like Jake Ferguson, Brandon Cooks, but it's
a good one.
You know, we probably have a lot more targets going to like randos or the aren't you worried bucket there than I think if you were to just look at pure competition. I could see where you could go kind of crazy on Cooks and Ferguson.
Can we talk about that? Because Pat mentioned like the targets have to go somewhere. Let's use that example as one. Like, it's specific to 2024, but also like it's not specific to any individual season. There's always offenses or just offenses we're worried about, right? And there's different levels of worry. I mean, I'm not worried about CeeDee Lamb like as a football player. I'm not worried about CeeDee Lamb with this quarterback play, right? And that's assuming health. Well, just for this episode, for one episode,
We're not doing aren't you worried about health?
I'm not doing.
Well, we might actually. I want to talk about TJ Hawkinson later, but
okay.
But guys who are currently healthy now,
guys who currently can't walk. Okay, we can talk about those guys. That seems acceptable. But even I won't bring up the aren't you worried about running backs getting hurt. But like, I'm not worried about CeeDee Lamb. I'm not worried about Dak Prescott. I know that they're good at football. I know that CeeDee is going to have right. We can debate the exact target share, but who gives a shit? I'm not worried about that. But I am worried about certain offenses every single year. The difficulty becomes, how do I balance the fact that, yeah, like the Cowboys, Dak and CeeDee look good, and like Jake Ferguson looks fine, and then every other player on the offense looks like total dog shit. Like, literally, it's a collection of pretty bad football players, and yet we're projecting them to be awesome because they got two really good football player, 2.5 really good football players, right? The Buffalo Bills, they might have 1.5 really good football players on their offense. You know, I still don't know how good Dalton Kincaid is. I don't know exactly how good Curtis Samuel is. I'm not super bullish that Keon Coleman is like a superstar, but Josh Allen, I know, is awesome. That's like the one side that I'm most worried about in 2024. But we also have the Broncos, right? Broncos, Saints, Patriots, Chargers, like all these just totally free offenses that everybody's like, oh boy, I think that they're probably going to suck. But we're wrong about those all the time. So like that balancing act of like, I'm very worried about that, but like, what's the payoff if I'm wrong about? How do you think about that?
Well, the Cowboys one is interesting because like to me, the aren't you worried guy, at least the way I was thinking about it, is actually Tolbert. Yeah. Like Tolbert's the dude, and you guys have Tolbert ranked as draftable. I've had him ranked as draftable, but then I got worried. I got worried. Like this dude, I was like, so he's bad. We know that. So that's already, I don't love to start there. And then there's like talk of all it took for me to get worried about Jalen Tolbert was like one report of like, it wasn't Flournoy, it was the other dude. I still can't remember his name.
Jalen Brooks.
It was Jalen Brooks. Someone's like, Jalen Brooks is going to make this competition. And I was like, then I don't want Tolbert ever. Like that's like enough to make me worried about Tolbert. But it's tough because maybe that's, overly cautious because he's literally free and you can get potentially the Cowboys wide receiver 3. But that's one where I tend to legitimately get worried is like, if I don't think the player's good and I get like any hints of role uncertainty, I was like, I just don't care about this guy anymore.
How do you guys treat that, Mike? Both like that, the role uncertainty. I mean, we just talked about Kenny Golladay, so maybe that's a loaded question, but also like the combination of that plus the offensive stuff, right? Like you said, you have to have base inputs into this. Is not just you with projections. I don't mean to make it a projection thing. I mean to make it like I make rankings, Pat makes rankings. We're drafting fucking teams based off of our assumptions. You have to have some form of assumption baked in, and like there has to be an assumption of some form of quality on the offense, right? Either poor or very good. Like, how do you weigh that? Because like, especially in this Cowboys situation, like I'm genuine. The offensive line has gotten worse. Zeke and Dowdle are the
I'm drafting the hell out of Zeke and Dowdle. I'm not worried. I don't know why I'm not worried.
We got a lot of Zeke and Dowdle too.
Why aren't we worried about that?
I'm fucking worried, Pat. I'm really worried.
Okay.
I'm like low-key not too worried about that one.
I'm really not worried at all.
You guys are
like, I don't think they're bringing anybody else in, and
I think they will bring someone else in, but I think it's like people don't like when they bring in Pirine or something, or it probably will be like less than Pirine even, but like when they bring in someone,
Pirine. You don't want it to
that's
be
not
Pirine.
ideal, but like Pirine will just back up Zeke. Like he's just like Zeke who doesn't know the offense. Like that's what he is in that situation because he's coming in like late August. So he's just like literally if Zeke goes down, Pirine will have a role, and if he doesn't, he won't. Like that's how I would read it because he missed all of training. They're not going to like, all right, Samaje, you've literally like never once gotten a snap with Dak, but you're in. Good luck. Like they're not going to play it like that. So I don't know. I'm not. I think they add someone, but I'm not worried.
As far as the team level stuff, I mean, we do a lot with like the average team totals for the season, for the spreads for the season, which I know aren't perfect, but I feel like it does give us like a decent barometer. And then, we've got Dak's history and like his baselines, and then like there's some amalgamation of that and like the wide receivers who do kind of suck, so we're like taking that into account, like that's affecting like Dak's efficiency and stuff. So we're doing that, and then like if we're really worried or like really excited about an offense, we can tweak some levers as far as efficiency, but we do kind of lean on the Vegas expectations to an extent where I know that's hard because those are like sort of the expectations that most of the market's operating from. And like, obviously you want to find an edge in the market, but I guess what we're able to find a lot of the times is maybe the market isn't actually assuming that stuff as much as it seems, or they're not putting it together with the play calling, correctly.
I like that. That's a good one. Because I think what the Vegas totals, which is just call it the market miss, is the Texans of last year, is the Bucks of last year, is the first year of Geno with the Seahawks, where it's like we all just assume they're going to suck. So the market said their team totals are going to be low. We're going to draft them low, and they're actually good, right? That's like the thing. And the flip side is why I brought up the Cowboys and a little bit of the Bills. The flip side of that is we expect the offense to be awesome. Think first year Russell Wilson, Denver Broncos, where we're drafting 3rd round Jerry Jeudy and 4th round Cortland Sutton and Albert O, who isn't even. There's an XFL tight end, Hakeem Butler, that's better than fucking Albert O.
I was off
for
Albert O because of a different XFL tight end.
Yeah, who's still I drafted him a couple times this year, but it's like that. I think that of everything we talk about today, the like being wrong about the offenses is the single biggest thing like I'm worried about, and like, but I don't know how to necessarily put it into practice. You know what I mean? Like I have my thoughts and my baseline expectations, but like I'm worried about them. So I'm willing to draft like I'm wrong about those offenses, but like how do I actually, how do I do that? When do I do that? When do I stick to my stances? That's the toughest thing for me.
Yeah, and I think maybe it was Hayden who put out some research on like the running backs who do well are just generally tied to the teams that end up performing well. So I definitely do like double and triple checks on running backs on the teams that we're worried about. Like that's definitely where you get really concerned because the efficiency is going to matter so much. The game script matters, like if they can score touchdowns. So I I care about those teams a lot, and those make me pretty worried. Like we're like kind of high on it. We're high on Antonio Gibson, for New England, who's going to be like a really bad team. Like I think price comes into it too, though, where it's like, we're in the 14th round or whatever. I'm not as concerned. But if I'm taking, like Miles Sanders last year for Carolina, where obviously now Carolina could have done what Houston did for all we knew, like going into the season, and Houston could have been what Carolina was, and it might have worked out differently. But you see where
I don't think it would. I mean, Dameon Pierce was a huge bust.
Yeah, that's
like,
true.
Yeah, I guess I just meant offensively, like.
Right.
But I don't want to be too like hindsight 2020.
To get past.
Sanders
was just too bad. He was Dameon Pierce.
He lost the job. Yeah.
But then there's teams like Jacksonville where we're really high on that. Like I'm not as worried about. Like I think just through the past game and the just double checking like the total team volume and stuff that I'm just not as worried about it. I do see the market and the season long prop line on Trevor Lawrence at like 20.5 touchdowns. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's a little lower than I would like to see. But
he got worried. He wasn't worried about the Jags. He still found a way to get
worried.
I mean, Brian Thomas is good for 17. So I don't know Kirk has 2 and Ingram has 1.
We cleared.
Pat, what do you think about the like offensive type stuff? So like here's a good example from this year that you're really into Drake May. I'm also into Drake May. I think we've done the royal we have done the Patriots song and dance, right? Every year is I need a backdoor stack. Time to take Mac Jones and Kendrick Bourne. Now it's Drake May and Javon Baker or Jalen Polk or whatever. But like the base expectation is not that the Patriots are going to be good. So how do you like think about that concern versus the upside case of Drake May, the excitement for Drake May, and all those factors?
Yeah, and it's also the Broncos, and it's also the Panthers. Daniel Raz at Al-Shah, his article again, wrote a really good article on Legendary Upside, identifying those three teams as kind of the key backdoor stacks, but that also help you when you're behind at wide receiver, because with the Patriots you can get like the whole offense minus Ramondre, but with the Panthers even you can get Adam Thielen plus Xavier Leggett, right? So you're getting receivers who would hit in a correlated way in an environment where receivers are super priced up. So, I mean, I think to me, just generally betting on some of these underpriced offenses or betting kind of against some of these offenses that get overpriced is like one of the key edges to be aware of. And like, I'm very encouraged. Like when I see where you guys at ETR are on like the Chargers, like you're ahead of market on Herbert, you're ahead of market on May. Like these are spots where I think like the market is right to be worried, but it's just like how worried. And like they've gotten extremely worried about Justin Herbert, which I get. Like, they're not going to throw a lot. And like Greg Roman's his offensive coordinator. That sucks. He doesn't have any receivers. Like, it's annoying. Like, this is a terrible way to treat a franchise quarterback. But like, I mean, he's available in the 130s. So I'm taking a lot of Justin Herbert. Like, I like where the market freaks out. Like, I want to find spots where we should be worried, but then the market like freaks out. Like last year, Michael Pittman was going in the 7th round because they're just like, they're not gonna throw once. Like, they will. They'll throw more than once. Like it gets nuts. Sometimes it just gets nuts.
Yeah, the one that's almost more interesting to me from the aren't you worried perspective is the offenses like we are confident are going to be really good, but then the market is just like really chasing
Super
them.
confident.
So,
Chasing, yeah.
We've seen it with KC in past years where it's like, and I do kind of hate the argument I see from a lot of people like, oh, either the wide receivers or the quarterback is mispriced, and I'm just like,
it's not true.
Well,
it's not
like
not
how
this
condensed
game
the
works.
offense is,
not
and
how
like
the
how they're going
game
to score the
works.
point, like that can be garbage. But like I look at an offense like Houston, and I'm like, not getting a lot of Nico Diggs, Dow, and Stroud. Like we're pretty even with market on the receivers, and then behind on Stroud. But that's one that's kind of terrifying. Where like the offense is really good, and even regardless how you feel about Houston, like you can insert whatever offense you guys might be worried about. Where it's just like, okay,
I mean, that is the pricey one. That's
really
this year's
pricey.
Jaguars, where it just feels like really we're pricing in. Like last year, it really felt like we were pricing in like another step, which is always dangerous when you're like, this offense is going to take a leap, and let's all pay for it now ahead of time.
Yeah.
And we're doing that with Houston, but I think it's a better bet than the Jacksonville one personally.
It is.
I'm more willing to make it. I'm a little ahead of like I'm a little overweight on Stroud. I think I'm at like 10%, nothing crazy, but he's falling into the 6th now, and I think it's pretty sweet when you can get one of these receivers or two maybe, and then you get Stroud in the 6th. Like, and it also, I like taking Nico, and then I take Mark Andrews a lot in the 4th, and I try to get Lamar to come back in the 5th. And if I don't, maybe I get lucky and Stroud comes back in the 6th. And if I don't, I have a little Nico Mark Andrews mini stack, and that's cool too. So I'm thinking about ways to get Stroud without paying a ton, as much as I can. So that one is tough, but it is tricky. Like I could see after the season looking back and being like, Stroud should have been going in like the 10th. Like that's
like Stroud versus Dak, for example. I'm just like, how are these guys going?
Or Jordan Love, or
There's a 3-round difference between Dak Prescott and CJ Stroud. And I know CJ Stroud was great, but like it's exactly what you said. He had one of the best rookie quarterback seasons ever. They added Stephon Diggs. Tank Dell is back and healthy. We're excited, but we're definitely not worried about the fact that we're projecting this.
Yeah, we're not worried.
We're all excited for it, as we should be. But like being excited for the offense in the situation is different from pricing them as if a leap is baked in.
Yeah,
like the leap is baked, not last year's baked in. The leap from last year is baked in, which is like a pretty dangerous thing to. It's possible. I might even call it likely, but it's dangerous to that. That's a tough needle to thread.
Burrow's 2 rounds cheaper, and it's just like it's hard for me to see a huge difference between the two.
We did this with Burrow too. Right, Burrow was one of the guys who
Herbert as as we did it with Herbert. He had the big second year or rookie year. All of a sudden, he's going in the 3rd round, 4th round, whatever.
Like Lawrence was going like 6 rounds earlier last year than he is this year, and it's like not that much has changed. Other than that, we didn't see what we wanted to see.
He might be set up better. Brian Thomas could be easily better than Ridley,
and Gabe. It probably is better than Zay Jones.
But Yeah, I guess just pulling back, like these offenses that are going to be good, that you're light on, can be terrifying. It's the same thing in DFS, though. Like you get a DFS weekend, it's like you need at least one Viking this week, and it's like, do you? Like I don't. And it's really
So
terrifying.
you
I
want
guess
the
there's,
market
like,
to be more worried, is what you're saying. The market's not
yeah,
worried at
yeah. I
all.
want the market to be more worried because it's tough.
Mike's
I guess there's not
sweating.
as many this
For
year.
the
but I
audio
feel like in
listeners,
past
Mike was
years that-
rubbing his hands on the side of his pants. It's 8 a.m. where Pat is, and Mike is sweating from all the worry that he's generating during this conversation.
What are there any other? I mean, the Texans are the big one, but are there any other offenses where you feel like? I guess maybe I throw out the Cardinals as a potential. The market doesn't seem very worried
Fair.
about
Yep.
this quarterback has never really been that good at supporting. I mean, he's been okay, but he's never been like never lived up to the full promise, right? He's coming off the ACL last year. He's 2 years removed now. He'll be totally fine. There's nothing to worry about anymore there. He's back. He's definitely back because it's been 2 years. And they had Marvin Harrison, totally unknown rookie. Don't need to be worried about that. Trey McBride crushed down the stretch with no target competition. Not worried. Not worried about that at all. Michael Wilson might be splitting with Zay Jones. Let's draft both. Not worried about that. And then Greg Dortch. No one's really drafting him. That's the one I'm not worried about.
Well, Greg Dortch is Greg Dortch is a Hall of Famer, if you ask Kyler Murray. Greg Dortch is the greatest wide receiver you've ever seen, based on Kyler. It's probably because it's the only wide receiver Kyler can see because he's close to the line.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, they throw under the guy's armpits.
I guess the one offense that we're in on that I probably have the most concern about would be the Bears. Where
that's a good one.
We're pretty in on that offense. Just seems like they have so much talent on the offensive side of the ball, and like view Caleb as such a big upgrade there. And the average team total spit out for them like a pretty higher than I expected to see for Chicago. But that's one that, like Pat's saying, like you could see it go bad, and it's be like, why were you drafting like 3 Bears wide receivers in the first 6 rounds or whatever?
Yeah,
with a quarterback who won seven games at USC or whatever, is like the guy could barely beat Pac-12 teams.
He's got Shane Waldron as his OC. So.
Yeah, right. The guy who we just pissed away all this money on Seattle and JSN, and this guy was the reason. Yeah, this guy was the reason.
Seattle will be good now that they don't have Waldron.
Yeah, Caleb couldn't win in college, but no big deal. It's fine. Keenan's like 35, right?
Seems fine.
Totally fine. But the Bears are. So you want to know what's happening during this conversation is I'm also getting worried. My hands are getting clammy, like Leone's, because we keep every offense we keep mentioning. I'm like, shit. I draft all these guys. Like I draft the Texans. Bears, like every one of these offenses, I'm like, yeah, I love them. Like I love Nico, and I'm like neutral on Diggs, I'm like neutral on DJ Moore, but I'm like, dude, Keenan Allen. Did people not see what Keenan Allen did last year? I'm like, what are we doing here?
Like Odunze's price to me is like one of the most crazy
top 10
things
pick
out
in the
there.
NFL draft.
Yeah, and like especially if you draft outside of Underdog too, like you're getting like 9th round. Rome Odunze on other sites. So another good aren't you worried topic for me is the rookies, because like we're generally like not as high on the rookies as you guys might be like systemically, and that's a crazy one because I get to feel worried both directions, where all our subscribers are drafting rookies nonstop on FFPC and DraftKings, and then on Underdog they don't get any Lad McConkey or Keon Coleman, and
well, they might get Coleman soon because he's fallen like a rock.
Yeah, Keon is falling. That's the Lad one to me is like he's the one I can't wrap my head around the most, and I think Worthy's getting really expensive. But that's a key. Aren't you worried? Like super explosive play, dude. Aren't you worried? This dude's the fastest guy ever playing with Patrick Mahomes. Like that
this should worry you.
2.0. Like, that's
legitimately
like
worrying.
Davis Maddock, aren't you worried meter on like 10 with not having Xavier Worthy. It's like, and my lighting is making my face look extra red today too. I was like super worried about everything.
We need that aren't you worried meter smashed down past 10 to 11. Davis is Pete. I want the needle to be
The
Pete's
Pete
face
Davis.
of
Yeah.
Davis. Yeah, of course.
I even, and in the rookie thing, similar to last year too, is a similar thing where like don't get as much JSN and Quentin Johnston on Underdog. I actually did a lot better on Underdog than DraftKings, ironically, because I had so many Quentin Johnston and Jackson Smith and Jigba shares on the this site that's worse. Like obviously there were a ton of rookies that smashed. So that's not an anti-rookie thing, but like that pocket of wide receivers, I guess specifically, is like somewhat comparable to last year, where we find ourselves in the same spot where we're like a little bit behind on Underdog and a little bit ahead on DraftKings. Not all of them, but like most of them. So that's
with Lad's one that now you're making me worried, because like Lad is a guy who
I can make you super worried on that.
Yeah, make me worried, because I want so there's two reasons why I kind of like Lad in the 6th. One is that like I think he showed really strong efficiency, even though he didn't run that many routes, but when he was out there he was awesome. So there's I think an upside case here that like this dude gets open really well, and that's all we heard from the scouts. Like throughout the draft process, I was like, I don't know about this dude, Lad McConkey. Like, come on, like yards per out run's good, but everything else is pretty concerning. And the scouting community was really, really high on him, specifically as a route runner. And then he was super athletic. So I'm like, okay, maybe this is kind of an under the radar gem here. He gets the draft capital. And then he lands in a situation where there's just like zero competition. Like Quentin Johnston, when you have I know they're talking him up as like, oh, we're going to use him differently and all this. But like when you have a rookie season like that, the baseline expectation should be like, you're lucky to turn into Zay Jones. Like you're really lucky. Like you're lucky to be Nelson Aguilar. Like that would be a good outcome for Quentin Johnston at this point. So you get him, you get Josh Palmer, who's fine. There's no real tight end they're going to target that much. Like maybe they cobble together like a typical tight end one target share, but it's not like a threat there. They don't really throw to the running back in the Greg Roman system, and the guys they brought in don't catch. So I'm like, man, I'm the kind of the target's got to go somewhere guy here. And then also that's where it's like I think Lad could be good. Like I think Lad has a sneaky upside case in a sort of like Cooper Cuppy, Puka kind of way of like the dude just gets open. And he's just like the offense has to flow through someone, and he says it will be me.
Thank you for putting Puka in your comp, by the way. Just to you get it.
I guess if you look at him relative to like the other rookie wide receivers, I see that he went in the top of the 2nd round, 9th wide. This is the 9th wide receiver drafted, and we're putting on a team on an offense that we're all worried about, and we're basically just saying, we like Lad McConkey, and there's a ton of room for targets. And like that's like the total argument. Like that makes me concerned.
That is
rookie.
Rome Odunze went 9th overall. That Lad was the 9th wide receiver drafted, and they're going like
it's not that big a difference.
It's just I don't know. It just seems like nutty to me. And then even like comparing him to Keon Coleman, at least Keon Coleman's on a team that like probably gonna pass more than the Chargers, probably has a better quarterback than the Chargers. So now we're very confident Lad's also better than Keon Coleman. Like
I think with Lad, it's like he gives you more of a floor ceiling combo that I'm comfortable with compared to Keon, where like if Keon's not it, like he could be the Johnston like easily. Like
it feels impossible for some like whatever your median projection for Keon Coleman is like wrong. Just throw it in the trash. There's no chance it's right. Yeah,
he's either good or useless. Like that's just
he's good or he's watching
I think
MVS.
The floor is better, I think, than people think, because I think like just where the team's at and what they invested in him, like he's gonna play.
But like if they're good, like so like we're assuming the Bills are good. That's why we're drafting Keon Coleman where we're drafting him, right? It's like we assume they're good, and there's this potential for a bunch of targets from the 30th, first pick of the 2nd round, early in the 2nd round. But like if they're good, and it's not because of Keon, what right does he have to be on the field? Like why? There's no like reason they have
that
to.
Brandon Bean quote scare you? Because that talk about aren't you worried?
Yeah, that was
Brandon Bean. Yeah,
That
that's
was,
I guess
the most PC way to say he looks like shit right now.
this dude has not impressed us once. This is what I heard.
He doesn't know how
he
to
doesn't know the
run block.
playbook. He can't run block for shit.
He doesn't know how to run block. Our quarterback
Listen, they gotta
scrambles like a
motivate guys
madman.
to
He
choose
needs to
different
go
routes,
block
okay?
the corner.
He said, I don't know what they teach at some of these schools as far as run blocking goes. Maybe nothing at all. But
Mike Norvell was catching.
that's
Mike
not how we
Norvell
do it here.
caught some
All right.
sprays from Brandon Beane.
I mean,
Oh,
we're below market on Keon too. I just when I compare the two, I just think like sometimes
Yeah.
like zooming out.
Mhm.
I
don't know,
think,
just
like-
like this, where like if you zoom out, the prices seem a
Yeah,
little crazy to me.
I
And,
completely
like,
agree with
Ladd,
Rome.
I mean, he wasn't even playing a lot of snaps at Georgia. Like, and now all of a
Right.
sudden, like our main argument is that he's gonna play all the snaps for the Chargers. Like,
I guess with Ladd, I'm like, I don't want this, but like he might be Justin Herbert's Hunter Renfro, which sucks in the
I think the
sixth.
Cooper Cup comp is a very, very good one.
Yeah,
honestly.
well, that's the upside.
It's
right?
racist, but it was accurate.
That's the upside. But I mean, like,
Which it can't be racist if it's accurate. I think.
what
is
if
the
he's
rule
what
is.
if he's Justin Herbert's Tyler Boyd, but the
Like
year
early.
that they didn't have any receivers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like that, like I could see him being.
yeah, I
guess
mean,
I-
what if? Like, sure. Like, I guess, like, I mean, yeah.
What
You
I
know,
mean is
what
like.
if Keon Coleman is like Josh Allen's main red zone threat? What if Xavier Worthy's Tyreek
No, I'm
Hill
saying these are
2.0?
down. These are like not the excite. Like I'm trying to say, I just think he's in the slot. He doesn't play. He doesn't run all the routes. But like, I have a harder
this
time
is the-
believing that
this is your
Ladd just
floor
like
case.
can't play.
This is your floor case. Yeah, this
Yeah.
is your floor case. Okay.
The floor case thing where I'm like, Ladd can do a thing. I'm very confident that Ladd can do a thing. He can play in the slot. He can get open over the short middle of the field. Like he can do that. That seemed, and then all the reports out of camp are he's doing that. He's doing it right away. He's showing a connection with Herbert. They're moving around the formation, but he looks great out of the slot. Like I'm pretty confident that at worst I'm getting a receiver of quality that is available like in the 90s in this environment. So I'm paying the 60s price for a potential 90s bet. But I'm getting the upside of like, I don't know, what if he's awesome? So that's, I think, and the other thing about Ladd, the other reason I like him is that he's going to move up, right? Like maybe I'm wrong about this part, but
No.
I think he's going to move up when I think it's going to be pretty clear in training camp that he's the top target.
I guess if you're that confident, then yeah, you should be drafting Ladd. I don't see how you can be that confident with like a round 2 wide receiver that he's.
Because I mean, there were early reports have been he's with the ones, he's establishing a connection with Herbert, and I think very, very low of the other guys. Like I think the competition is pretty. It's about as bad.
And to be clear, like we
anyone.
projected Ladd because we're worried to lead the team in targets. Like that's our
How big is your
that's
bucket
what we're
of
operating off of.
how big
you
is your
know?
bucket of we don't know where it goes?
The aren't you worried bucket's
Is that-
got to be
is that like a
ginormous.
33% target share?
The aren't you worried bucket? Let's see. I don't. It depends if you count.
He's
Like,
wide receiver 5.
We got enough randos to spread out to them that we don't have
Yeah.
the aren't you worried, but like we've got like some Chark, some
Yeah.
Darius.
I'd like to
Davis,
draft
Yeah.
the Chargers.
Rice.
Aren't you worried bucket in like the
I know.
Eighth
Let that guy should be, because honestly, he'd go ahead of Ladd. Yeah. Think of the
But I
upside.
guess my point, like that, this like goes back to the initial conversation, like the aren't you worried? And I talk about how like we do a base case, a ceiling case, and we have the levers we can pull. Like we've kind of pulled all the levers for Ladd.
Hey, if you're projecting Darius Davis, I would say maybe you haven't pulled all the levers.
Okay. But as far as like how we like jack up ceiling cases, we kind of like gave him like the highest like odds of hitting the ceiling that we go to. We've we bumped like his efficiency at a higher rate than we normally do in those ceiling cases. And it's the big thing, I guess, would be like how high can his target share get? Like we've got like a 23% target share as like his ceiling case. Like if you think that can get to 25 plus, then he's probably a good pick where he is. But not to make this Ladd specific, just in general, the rookies though, I'm worried about. And Ladd's just interesting because he's the one that seems to have the steam across the boomer sites too. Like most of the other guys don't, but like
you can
Lad
project the
does.
volume.
You can project him. That's why I think he goes up. That's why I think he's the
You're
guy
with the
who has
boomers.
he's the profile of the dude the boomers like. So
yeah,
he's also in many
many
non-racist ways as well. He is everything that everybody wants. He's everything that everybody wants, like every box, right?
Right.
Like he was because the problem for Keon in this comp. I know you said we're not trying to make this like I think the actual conversation is just about your point about rookies overall. It's spot on to the aren't you worried? Like I'm terrified. Like I'm absolutely terrified about all of these guys, whether it's being underweight or overweight. The problem with Keon is that they have a few more bodies you can say, right? Like so Dalton Kincaid goes in front of Keon Coleman, and you're like, I can give, like, if I'm worried about Keon, I can give it to Kincaid.
Right.
And it's like they do have a couple
Samuel.
veterans that like, right. So Curtis Samuel like is what Curtis Samuel is, but you can go and see like go look at Matt Harmon loves Curtis Samuel, right? He's like, this dude is a baller. He, not a superstar, but he's a really good NFL football player. You can like make the cases for, oh, Josh Allen's going to run for a bunch of touchdowns. Like there's so many ways to make the case against Keon Coleman. And then you look at Keon's prospect profile and you're like, Jesus Christ, he had the worst yards per route run in the whole class. Like he can't separate, blah, 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 blah. Lad is the opposite. Every rookie efficiency prospect bro is like, he had the second best yards per route run in the class, better than Malik Neighbors last year. Small sample, caveats, all that kind of stuff. Tested athleticism.
To me, he's like
awesome.
the JSN versus, Keon's more of the Johnson profile where if he could be, T. Higgins was boom bust. He boomed. So it's like, these guys, it's going to be much more, it's going to feel like much more obvious and binary in retrospect. It's like, oh, well, obviously this dude was a bust or whatever. So the outcomes when like they resolve are going to be more extreme than what we can predict in a lot of cases. But, and I'm actually taking some Keon Coleman, by the way. Like I'm taking it, I've taken him in the early 6th to pair with Josh Allen because I didn't get Cook and I didn't get Kincaid, and I'm like, well, this is a scenario where Keon Coleman's him, so I'm drafting him in the early 6th. So, and I took him the other day uncorrelated because he's dropping into the late 7th. So I don't want to make it seem like I'm completely out on Coleman, but his floor does really scare me. Like just his prospect profile is like this dude could be like nothing, or he could be awesome. So. Yeah, that's where I'm like with Lad, like, I don't know. I was really in on JSN last year, and then he kind of was a bust, but then he does do a thing, and he did that thing luckily in week 16 well enough to get in the end zone and, help me out that way. So I think for me with Lad, like you're getting a floor ceiling combo that looks pretty nice for a rookie. It's not like a smash. It's not, but that's where I actually very comfortable with him in the 6th. I want to ask you more about Rome though, because as you mentioned, this is not you're ahead of our rankings. The legendary upside, we got him at 65. You guys, I believe, are in the early 60s. So this is a rookie where, if anything, like I need to get more excited about, and I've been taking him a lot. But like aren't you worried about Shane Waldron? The target competition, Leone. I don't know if you actually have to think, you have to mathematically project where the targets go. Are you not aware of this?
There's some irony in that the rookies that we are higher on than market are the ones the market are scared about the projectable volume on.
It is very ironic and it makes me feel like
well, that's why I think people don't realize like exactly what we do, which is not just like blindly like fill out like vacated target share, like
there's not big blocks of targets that you move around the screen.
Like Rome can't get there because they got. But I mean, Rome was the 9th overall pick in the draft, and there were NFL teams that had him valued over Malik Neighbors, who went 6th overall and was the wide receiver 2 in the draft. So, and just if you look at any like prospect guide stuff, like there's a tier 1 that's like maybe Harrison and Neighbors, and then there's Rome, and then there's a drop off. Brian Thomas is not really in the Rome tier.
No, he wasn't.
Like consensusly. So
I don't think anyone
we're high on Brian Thomas too, but But like honestly, it's just small. Like you do like the bell curve meme. It's like Rome Odunze was the 9th overall pick. He's like probably really good. Like that's it.
Yeah.
And
He's a
again,
great
I
one
do
for
think
that
the
meme.
offense in general. And the other thing too, like with the way offenses operate now, I think Scott Barrett had a tweet on this, like how offenses like allocate their targets differently, and it wasn't like perfectly adjusted for like playing time and stuff, but like we're expecting this to be like a very concentrated offense. Like, and I guess like a concentrated offense doesn't mean it has to be like 2 guys, but it can be like if we only play these 4 wide receivers, like. So I think with him, the floor is probably higher than people think, and also the ceiling case, like you obviously get contingency upside on like a couple of guys that could get hurt in front of him for him to like increase that. So that's why we're high on. And in general, when we're looking like historically, like target shares by draft spot allocation, like it's going to be really hard, almost regardless of circumstance, for us to have, you know, the 34th overall pick project for a higher target share than the 9th overall pick. It's just going to be hard for us to do that. And I think our base target share right now on Odunze and Ladd is like very similar, but we have a little bit of a higher ceiling case for Odunze given the draft capital.
You're talking me into this. I like how you laid that out too. You're talking me into. I mean, I draft Rome Odunze, but I'm feeling light. Speaking of
If you're
being
worried,
I'm worried.
You're worried? Go over to FFPC and you get them in round 9. So
good point.
Wow.
Your point about like other sites. I know you just mentioned FFPC. Go to DraftKings if you want to take Rome Odunze. It was like you said, you know, like, dude, there was a stretch last year, which I know that this failed miserably, but JSN would be readily available on DraftKings like 115, dude. Like it was nuts last year.
Where it like circles back to my original thing is like when I draft on DraftKings, it's like, do I have too many rookie wide receivers? Like am I not? And then I draft on Underdog. Sometimes it's like, do I not have enough? You know, because you want like some sort of mixture
you want
in
to
your
mix.
room.
Yeah.
Thing. With the 20 round drafts on DraftKings, I think it's another reason to even like go heavier on the rookie bullet, just because you can get some quantity to help with your floor there a little bit easier. But yeah, it's crazy. And it's just funny how you can be super worried about like an archetype group of players like in different ways on different sites.
Yeah. Rome Odunze, so I'm at 16% on him. I've been taking him over Ladd still, but one of the reasons I'm prioritizing Ladd in the 6th, I'm at 18% Ladd, is because I think he flips Rome. That's where, again, I'm betting on the training camp reports coming in strong, and I think he ultimately flips Rome, and I think that'll be kind of crazy. So I'm just like, let me make sure, like, with Ladd, I would be like, I would kind of love if I end up even on Ladd, but it's because I just got a big bag in the 6th, and then he goes in the 5th, and maybe even flips Worthy or something. But I mean, Rome Odunze in the 6th feels like a pretty obvious bet where we are just betting on talent, and it's hard for me to see him rising a ton because, I mean, what the case is basically he good. Right, and so that's just never gonna.
But his teammates are good.
His teammates are good too. Yeah,
which should be good, you know, to an extent.
To an extent, right?
To an extent, like.
And then we're excited about the quarterback. Yeah, so I like drafting Rome. Rome is not a guy I thought I would be that into because I think, you know, it's a good prospect profile, but I didn't like him as much as the draft capital would suggest. But yeah, I mean, you're gonna put him in the mid 6th as the 9th overall pick. I'm gonna take that.
Can we talk about the talent thing a little bit? Because that's something I do definitely worry about. So, Pat, you and I on maybe the last show, a recent show, mentioned how something we like to do every year is kind of bet on the players we believe to be talented, because the market a lot of the times doesn't. And we're talking about some of this where it's like we're giving guys we don't know how good they are a certain level of volume, thus they need to be right. So think back to all the like Brandon Cooks on the Houston Texans a couple of years ago, going in the 4th round or whatever he was, because it was like, I know that the Texans stink. I know Brandon Cooks is like kind of just a guy, but who the hell else is going to get some targets from old Davis Mills? So we lump him up there. So betting against maybe bad players and betting on good players can be advantageous because the good players can just far exceed what our expectations are based on projections. But like, I do worry at times, like, how accurate am I? I'm not an NFL scout. I'm not there at practice. I'm not in the meetings. I don't know exactly how good these players are. I'm just looking at the same data that everybody else is. So how do you think about the level of worry in terms of your assessment of who is good and bad?
I'm glad that I don't have to feel that worried about it, because I don't think a lot of the market is really, it's getting maybe a little bit better, but a lot of times, like, when you're like, yeah, this dude's not that good, a lot of times you're just like, who cares? Like, he's gonna get fed, right? Or like I care.
They're not worried.
That's why I brought it up.
Saying. Our opponents are not worried.
They're not worried. I think, like, in a lot of cases, people aren't really that concerned about how good the players are. And so just like trying to figure out how good they are can be an edge, even though we're going to be wrong a lot. It's like, kind of name brand on some of these dudes carries a lot of weight. And then situation, and kind of just like getting married to a week 1 depth chart of like, oh, he's the dude. He's going to be the guy all season. It's like, maybe not, because it's not very good. So, yeah, I'm going to be wrong. I would be a lot more worried if it was a competition that was largely based on figuring out how good these guys are. But it's mostly a competition of like figuring out, I don't know, it's a lot of vibes. The market is doing a lot, it's still a lot of this on vibes with the way these ADPs work out, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's obviously difficult. Like, for the rookie stuff, I generally just defer to people like Pat, JJ, Miko, who honestly I think are sharper than me, and Siegel, and like, I aggregate a lot of that, and I don't have like super strong takes on like who's good or not. I try to like be as objective as It's not that I don't care who's good, but I'm not trying to like figure it out myself. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm just trying to kind of like aggregate the people that I think are the sharpest and weight the way that I think translates best to like what's actually going to happen, and weight that. With the non-rookies, it's a fine line, because like Pat said, I do think there are people who are like not worried about it enough. But then there's, we do only get to play like one season at a time. And sometimes the most important players are figuring out those guys that are going to have these roles, whether they're good or not. So it's like, like, I do think like figuring out if Joe Mixon's a good pick is like a tough thing. Like, I don't think it's easy to just say Joe Mixon's bad and the market just loves Joe Mixon because all they see is the depth chart. Like, I don't know if, like, I still think there's some situations that are pretty complex in terms of like talent versus no talent, which isn't to say we don't bake it in. It's just, we're more willing, I think, than some of the market to take these guys that probably aren't that good.
The sliding scale of the talent too, right? Like, Joe Mixon is not Ronald Jones. No offense, Pat. He's not.
You mean that he's not a superstar?
Exactly. He's not Darrington Evans. I'll pull from my bag of washed, useless running backs.
I guess he has some skills that maybe we don't value that teams value. I think there are.
That's the Zeke case.
Yeah.
We can all see that Zeke sucks at all that. Like, watch the game. like my grandma
I think Joe Mixon, I think those skills are like, he takes a lot of notes in team meetings. Like, I think he must like really show up and like, they're like, oh, Joe works real hard.
He said Lord Jordan knows the playbook better than he does.
Like, that's fine. Like, if he's gonna stay on if he's not going to get replaced, like, he's almost surely worth his ADP.
I agree. No, I have taken a decent amount of Mixon.
I'm not like making this like a Mixon, not Mixon. He's just a good example of like, there are these guys where I think you have to think pretty hard about it, whether you think they're good or not. But like, we definitely take into account, like, we have a huge stance on DeAndre Hopkins versus Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, I was going to bring that one up. Yeah, that's a classic one to me. Like,
that's like, Ian Hartitz tweeted something the other day, and like, even me knowing this is why we have it that way, I was like shocked at like how much DeAndre Hopkins was better at like everything than Calvin Ridley last year, like PFF grade, yards per out run, targets per hour, literally everything, in a much worse scenario than Calvin Ridley. And I understand the age thing, but we're talking 32 years old versus 30 years old. And Hopkins is also like, I think, in a little bit that like Keenan Allen, like survivorship bucket, where he's probably not going to have this crazy drop off right away. So it's like, are those 2 years worth taking the worst player at a
No.
much higher price? Like, and like, we don't think so, you know?
That one, I'm really glad you brought that one up because it's on both sides. We're like, so I'm very quick to be out when a guy shows signs of falling off. Like I will bail. I did that last year with Adam Thielen, like, you know, and that looked like it was potentially really bad. And, you know, maybe I got bailed out at the end with him falling off and not doing quite as much at the end of the season. But like,
or you were right.
Or I was right, or yeah, maybe I was right. But like if a dude falls off and he's old, I'm just like, I'm not doing it. But if a guy hasn't shown any signs of falling off, and in fact he's showing that he's still really good, and he's old, I'm like, I would like a discount. Like, don't make me take him in the third round, but like, you're gonna let me have him in the 6th and 7th round when this dude. So, you know, we just got the Matt Harmon reception perception on Garrett Wilson, sent it to superstar status as a route runner. Same open score as DeAndre Hopkins last year, identical. They were both wide receiver. They were tied for wide receiver 5. Same as AJ Brown, 3-way tie for wide receiver 5 in open score last year. Like, it's not just that he's, you know, this guy you throw 50-50 balls to, although he's always been awesome at that, but like, he's still able to get open.
He's a technician.
You know? Yeah. This dude, is he discount Devontae Adams? You know, we're getting him in the, I mean, it may be a better team situation, frankly. And you know, Calvin Ridley hasn't been good in years. It's been like 2020 since this dude was good.
Is Jacoby Myers better than Calvin Ridley?
He might be.
Calvin Ridley is Juju.
Brock Bowers. Yeah, that's a good one.
But he's Patriots Juju. This isn't the Chiefs.
Like, in terms of this guy that like, and like I was hanging on to Juju for a while, and this guy that like flashed at one point in time, and it's been a while, and it's like we're really hanging on to that.
Yeah.
Like, because I remember asking Gretch when I was on Ship Chasing, I was like, "Are you worried?" Because I have a very bull Kyle Pitts stance. I was like, "You worried that there's like some Juju vibes with Kyle Pitts, just in terms of like, you know, he had a little bit of an injury. You know, it's been 2 years seasons in between.
Super young, same case.
Yeah,
so, you know, super. So like that's my worry with Kyle Pitts. But you talk about Ridley, and I'm like more confident that like we're giving him the Juju treatment a little bit. We're making too many excuses for him, I think.
I'm pretty sold that people don't know how young Kyle Pitts is, and I'm pretty sold that people don't know how old Calvin Ridley is.
Yeah,
like
agreed.
Calvin Ridley, people, you know, it's part of the gambling thing or whatever that, you know, caused it. But he was an old prospect already. That, like, I bet if you ask, you know, you do the you know, like TikToks or Instagram reels or whatever, where people go randomly stick the mic in randos on the street and ask them stupid questions. If you went up to everybody around your house, how old is Calvin Ridley, wide receiver for the Jacksonville Jaguars? I bet I'd say 27, set the over under at like 27 or something like that. Like, people think he's like in his prime, and it's like, no, dude, he's almost out of the, like, he's one more bad season from being Juju Smith-Schuster, you know, from being something like that.
And to Pat's point about like people sometimes not looking into the talent enough, I think sometimes you obviously have to dig deeper than the surface stats. And like, if you look at the surface stats of Ridley versus Hopkins, they're very similar, but that's because you had just two very different offenses. Like, you had a better quarterback and a much more pass happy offense in Jacksonville than you had in Tennessee. So you have to contextualize those. And that's where like Pat's really good at looking at like some of the breaking down the yards per out run and like piecing together like the open score and things like that. So if you're just looking at the surface stats, I can see where you're like, oh, these two are like the same. I'll take the guy who's 2 years younger, and, you know, him a round ahead of DeAndre Hopkins makes sense. Like, if that's purely what you're looking at.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I really don't. So I don't think people realize, like, with Ridley as well, like, this dude, even if you look at the surface stats, like, he had 821 yards. This includes the postseason. So let me just go regular only. Okay, so
last year he did break 1,000.
He broke 1,000 last year. He had 821 yards and 10 touchdowns as a rookie. Pretty nice. 866 and 7 as a sophomore. Then he breaks out that 2020 season, 1,374 yards and 9 touchdowns. That's 2.44 yards per route run. Awesome season. But then in 2021, he's banged up. 281 yards. Sorry?
And terrible in the games he does play.
Terrible in the games he does play. 1.43 yards per route run. Only puts up 281 yards. Then he gets suspended in 2022. And then last year, he breaks 1,000 yards, scores 8 touchdowns, but with 1.57 yards per route run, the second lowest of his career. And like you look back, like he had 1.69 yards per route run in his second season, 1.77 as a rookie, which is good for a rookie, but not amazing. So it's really, who are we talking about? We're talking about a guy who had one really good season in 2020. Bad season in 2021, gets suspended, and he's coming off very clearly the second best season of his career from a production standpoint, but it wasn't efficient. And now he's going from Trevor Lawrence to Will Levis, and people are like, yeah, sign me up. Let's go. I don't understand. Like, this would be like kind of the classic example. I'm like, are you guys even looking into whether this dude's good? Like, he looks bad. This guy looks bad. Like, I would be nervous about him in, like, honestly, if he was in the early 8th, that's where I would be like, okay, this feels like an acceptable amount of risk, like kind of in the Jameson Williams zone.
I was just gonna say, after Jameson, like Ridley should be. We talked about the Bateman line. Like, Ridley should probably be the Bateman line.
He should be the Bateman line.
I don't know if this dude's good. That was like the Bateman thing. Is like the situation seems fine, right? The projectable volume seems fine. The wide receiver drop off is steep after this, and I don't really know how good he is. But at this point in the draft, like, what are my other options? Right? It is Jacoby Myers. It is Tyler Lockett, and it's like those guys aren't difference makers, so I could take him there. But I'm very worried about how good he is as a what I don't even know what his ADP that tells you how much I draft him. Like, I don't even know what his price of 5th round pick
I don't see him
now.
Much. Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't know because I don't. I just rarely draft him. Yeah, that makes no sense to me.
He goes right behind Keenan Allen. He goes right behind Keenan Allen.
He's one of my like few like really really big fades. Like I don't know if I have a share, through 40 teams yet, and like I draft pretty diversified, because it's also hard for me to be like, oh well, I'll set up this stack like when you have to take him first, if you're doing that. And
you can just get Hopkins, to set up the Titans thing. 100%.
And I don't really want to double stack the Titans in like the 5th, 6th. Like, that seems aggressive. Like, I'm gonna pick one.
Yeah, like pick one and then give me like Chig or like dart throw Tyler Boyd
you can throw Spears on there.
I was just gonna say Ty J.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We've talked a lot about what we're worried about. One thing I get a lot from people that I'm not worried about, and there's very few things I'm not worried about, just from a macro perspective, is the like, aren't you worried this guy will have a spike week?
Oh my God.
And be the guy that you need, the guy that we can combine. Aren't you worried? And the guy that you need in week 15.
Yeah, let's put all the bits together.
I have a fade position on George Pickens, and that's like one of the like. Well, he has like a lot of spike.
I got worried, and I took the fade position.
I like Pickens, so but I understand.
But I do think like there are players who like spike more than others, and it matters. We should factor that in, but. Once you factor that in, Derrick Henry's one that you guys won't like that I hear it a lot about too, is like, Derrick Henry with the multi-TD upside for Baltimore.
I take him if he falls to the middle of the 4th, which he does in these puppies. All right. Let's get some exposure. Let's get a little taste. 4% exposure blanket. Yeah.
But I mean, to me, like, I'm worried about so much at some point. I'm just like, if George Pickens has the smash game in week 15, so like just so be it. Like, there's gonna be ways that you're gonna lose. And
are you the Mr. Burns meme where you're worried about everything, so all the worries can't get in the door, and you feel inner peace?
Leone's bubble boy. Leone's the best ball bubble boy. He's just so worried about absolutely everything. The moment he gets out of bed in the morning, we just got to wrap him in a bubble.
Erik and I talked about this before our pod that we recorded last week, but like. the way people like use our ranks and like chat about it in like Discord and stuff, I like legitimately feel responsible for people's exposures.
Yeah.
It's like people are like, oh, like there was the one year. I'll use a positive example for us, but there's the Russ year in Denver.
Yeah.
Again, with like there being different cases for the quarterback and wide receiver. It was like we were like decently in line or high on the receivers, but we were like way low Russ, like relative to ADP.
Yeah.
And I just remember there being comments like all summer, like, with this Russ rank, I can't get any Russ exposure, as if like they were like physically like not allowed to click Russell Wilson because the ranking. And then like I get super worried that like, oh my God, if Russell Wilson's the guy you need in week 15, like we got problems.
AI is getting really powerful now, and the ETR rankings actually come with a thing that jumps out of the screen at you and holds your hand back from clicking Russell Wilson if you drafted Cortland Sutton. Yeah. No, I feel the single biggest thing. So it's funny that we're all on this together as three different people creating and selling rankings, but the single number one biggest aren't you worried that I have has nothing to do with my own teams. It's what Leone said, because I specifically am well-noted wide receiver bro, but also it's not just like I don't dislike Christian McCaffrey. I don't dislike Bijan Robinson. I don't dislike Breece Hall. I fucking love all three of them, right? It's other reasons as to why I am below ADP on them. And so, I mean, I had somebody come into the Discord and just being like, I bought the rankings. Why is Christian McCaffrey not the 101? And you got to go down the, you got to explain it to him. And he's like, so you think I should never draft Christian McCaffrey? I'm like, that's not at all what I said. But here's how I put my rankings together. And it's like, but that is a little bit of my own teams, but also just like, aren't you worried that people are, gonna when Christian McCaffrey scores 45 points in week 17, and has a good game? Aren't you worried? I'm fucking I'm truly terrified about that. Yes.
They'll remember you for Brashad Perriman, but they'll forget about Rashad Penny. I'll tell you that much.
They did. Yeah, I already forgot. You guys were out on Penny? That was smart.
No, we were in on him the year that he was like smashed. Like
awesome.
You're in on.
He was like actually like awful all year. Like he didn't do anything all year, and then he like smashed like the last 6 games.
Just the RB1 for like the last 5 games.
He was on your team with Pete, right?
Yep. We didn't have Amon-Ra. That was why we lost. We didn't have Amon-Ra. I've really done a good job of making the finals, having an awesome team, and not having that one guy you need. So
guy you need. So that's I understand the worry now.
12
there's this site called Spike Week where you just gotta find the guys that
maybe I should draft the guys who do that. Yeah, that would be a good idea. No CeeDee Lamb last year. No Amon-Ra the year he went for $1 billion in week 17. What do you guys think about that though, Mike? You said I couldn't agree more. Aren't you worried about that guy having a big game, right? Having the Amari Cooper game, having the CeeDee Lamb game, having the Mike Evans game from a couple of years ago, having Jamar Chase, right? It happens constantly, and certainly seems to happen in week 17 every year. I mean, I think I know like generally what you guys think about that, but you mentioned George Pickens, like how do you like weigh I know this guy can go off, right? I know that he can have a big game, but also I don't really want to draft him at his cost. How do you balance those things?
Yeah, I mean, that's really difficult. Like I said, I'm a pretty diversified drafter, so I do get away with part of that with like, George Pickens falls around after ADP. Like I'm probably going to take George Pickens and have like 2 to 3%, if he fought, and I know like draft capital is super important that early, and just like some humility that I could be wrong. But in general, the way I'm looking at it is like, I'm more worried like that I'll be just wrong on the person from like a seasonal standpoint, and not just like the full season, but even like the ups and downs, and like rookies like maybe smashing like the second half of the season and stuff, like understanding those cases. But I'm not super worried about like this guy, I think like underperforms all year and then has the wrong week at the wrong time. That's where I'm like, okay, we've worried about enough at this point. Like if George Pickens is a low advance rate player and then smashes, and I'm not saying he is, like I know you're in on him, and I know like I saw, Dwayne McFarland Fantasy Life made like a really bullish case for him. But just for me as someone who's on the fade side, like I can live with that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more worried about like I had a pretty big fade on DJ Moore last year, and like he kind of, I'm almost more worried about that, where it's like weird, like he didn't really matter in the playoffs, but like I was more wrong on him, you know, like I'm more worried about like we're gonna look back and just have like these things be
really good football player. With absolutely, we're making the Lad McConkey case, and DJ Moore is like, we know he's awesome, and his target competition was Darnell Mooney, and we were like, nah, the Bears are they're gonna throw 12 times a game, right? It's like that's I know that's not what you were saying, but I fear those being wrong rather than I didn't like Amari last year. I don't really care that he scored 50 points in week 16.
Taking this back, sticking with the DJ Moore one from more of like a worry just from a result standpoint, like not from like a process standpoint, but like when you have a fade and like I think we were off on DJ Moore, but I also think he sun ran a little bit like for that stretch. And it's like he has a 3 touchdown game on national TV early in the season.
You're so worried you're checking the schedule? Like, oh, come on, just go off.
Is this on Peacock? Is this on Peacock? Or is this on NBC?
Like, and you lost Man versus Machine with Silva on it too. Like, that's a tough one. That's a log off kind of night.
How many? He's checking the TV ratings.
That's
How
right,
many
man.
people got to witness me holding a big fat L during this game? You know, was it on Sunday Ticket or was it on?
What if my
NBC?
guy goes off, but it's on the Germany game and no one sees
Nobody cares.
It's not on the main
Pat's
slate.
not even awake yet, so he doesn't really care.
I'm not even close to awake. I'm in REM, baby.
I have like internally like tried to vow to myself, like with this season in particular, like that I'm just gonna have fun with it, because like we're mostly saying this stuff in jest, but the environment has gotten so like competitive.
Yeah.
Like almost, I would say, be careful the way I word, make sure I word this the right way. Like less between like us, like we all run our own companies that are like theoretically competing, right? And I don't feel like this level of competition with Pat, but as I like look at how the communities interact with each other, there seems to be like it feels like there's a lot on the line more than there should be for what is best ball fantasy football.
Seriously,
at times. So I've vowed to like
agree.
Just like your identity is not whether or not you were 0RB bro and CMC smashed, and like you don't have to retire Erik if that happens.
I mean, I think it can be.
That's debatable.
It should be, if it is an identity, it should be one that you're willing to take off. You know, it's a jersey that you're wearing, and you're willing to take it off and go do something else. Go out to dinner. You know, you don't got to wear it all the time. Like I like to kind of do
scarlet letter. Yeah, it's not a scarlet letter.
Right. I'd like to kind of do the brand. You know, this player is kind of a brand player for me. I like that, but like, I don't think that you want it. First of all, it's kind of funny sometimes with some players who are like, "Oh, Pat, you love this guy." Now I'm like, "Nope, I love that guy last year. I don't really like him this year."
I mean, you guys have experienced it with ship chasing with like Chanel and Sky Moore, where at some point you just have to accept that there's going to be a group of people that don't like understand, and they're going to think you're an idiot, and that's fine.
Yeah, it is fine. Because this is a stupid game we made up, so we should embrace the silly elements of it and have fun with it.
Absolutely.
People just suck.
Well, I mean, and Sky Moore, like he just hasn't gotten a shot.
I didn't mean Sky Moore sucks. I mean like the YouTube comments. Although he does,
I know what you meant.
Sky Moore might make his way to your YouTube comments, but be very positive. Probably, like these guys still believe. These are the only people on the internet.
I don't believe in Sky anymore. I do kind of believe in Visca. I think give Visca a shot. Give him a shot.
If DJ Moore's sun running last year, Visca just ran. He's
just been running cold for 4 straight years. That's all.
As Eric's pointed out before too, though, like we're like, this is the 5th slate of BBM, like, and it's extremely unlikely you're gonna win. So like you're gonna have stances that don't work out, because like it'd be literally impossible to be perfect on all these. Like you'd be a billionaire somewhere doing something else if you knew exactly what was gonna happen. So you can be catastrophically wrong and still like not have had bad process. I mean, you still want to take an L when it's deserved, but sometimes
Right.
it's just like
Right. I do think taking L's is important because if you take an L well, you'll get better.
Yeah,
100%.
You don't want to just embrace every L that you can take to, self-flagellate or something. But identifying where you were wrong, like legit wrong, is very, very helpful.
It's a good. It's a really good one. Like, for instance, last year, like I was big on Rashad Penny. I am happy to wave that white flag. Like it just is what it is. We talked earlier about like Joe Mixon and Zeke and some of that stuff. And honestly, I get mad when I think I don't get worried. I get mad when I think about the Penny thing because I got so enamored with the flash, basically. The enamor of the Eagles. I think part of it was I was heavy Miles Sanders the year before. I was out on Josh Jacobs and in on Miles Sanders. Tell me how that fucking makes sense. But so like you're like the market's wrong about the Eagles running back, and you hit it, and then the next year you're like, now look at this guy. He's better than Miles Sanders, and maybe DeAndre Swift isn't good, so I know better. I'm gonna take this big stance on Rashad Penny, and I was missing the forest for the trees type of situation, and I feel like one of my edges is in some of that nuance of the running back position. Right. So I love to, I'm a dickhead, but I love to joke about people were drafting Deuce Vaughn in like the 16th round at the beginning last year. And I was just like, you guys are really missing how running back works in the NFL. Like that guy's the size of one of my dogs. Like, I'm sorry to tell you, he's not going to be an impact fantasy player. Right. Even if yeah, like I know it's fun. Like it's really fun. He's got a cool name. It's, I get it, but like, he's not going to win you any money in fantasy football. And like understanding that, right? Part of the reason I've loved Kyron Williams since he was a prospect, not just because he was like a good prospect, was because of that new, like, right? He's a good pass blocker. I know he wasn't great last year with the Rams, but like that's his profile. They trust him to pass block. That's the Zeke thing. It's like, why am I willing to take Zeke this year? I know he sucks as a runner, but NFL teams value these things. So we should value these teams.
They trust him.
And I whiffed on like the Penny thing, and you got to be able to look back and just be like, nah, I didn't just run bad. Like that was dumb. It was bad. It's okay. Like you can accept that and not being worried about being able to take that L and then not being worried about hitting the next L because you're like, I'm going to play this slate the best I can with now the knowledge that I have is like, that's the game. That's the whole game.
But I do think like the diversification is the real answer here, where like, when you talk about redraft, right? In redraft, Rashad Penny was priced at a level where you could have taken him at an 80% clip on your teams and been fine. Yeah. You've been fine. It just doesn't matter. You especially because, right, you probably structured that team to where you didn't spend a ton at running back. You're strong at receiver. He was one of the more premium bets that you made at finding running back upside, but hardly the only one. And you're able to in redraft, if you want to kind of overspend your late round picks at running back and like go like 8, 9 running backs or something, really get aggressive with it. Like you're going to cut some of those guys and you're going to feel like I probably didn't need to draft this dude and this dude and this dude. But if you find a hit there, like it's going to pay for itself. So it's a different game. And I think one where we're still kind of moving away from, hey, okay, I have this I'm really confident in this big stand, but do I move off of it a little bit more than I really would like to from like what my redraft instincts are telling me to do here? And then also like just the minor stands, like diversifying your minor stands and being open-minded on some of these guys. Like I'm trying to take Najee Harris, even though that's like the least fun thing I can do. I'm like Jalen Warren, and the most fun thing, in order to have fun, I want to be like, and Najee stinks. But like he doesn't stink. I don't think he stinks. Like he was actually pretty good last year. I thought he stunk last year, and then he proved me wrong and was decent last year. And now I'm like, okay, he's in an offense that's going to run a ton. He's got size. He's probably the preferred guy at the goal line. Isn't he just sort of like discount David Montgomery, but maybe ultimately like in a better situation? Like is he sort of the better pick between the two? And so that's where I'm trying to get myself onto some of the profiles that I don't want to take. Because I think in best ball, you just need to be a little bit more open-minded to some of the profiles that you would normally in redraft be like, he's not it. I'm not taking that guy. He's not it. I don't have to worry about him. And if he is it, I'll have found enough other guys who were the guys, and I'll lap those dudes anyway or whatever. So diversification, I think, is a big one. And then I am trying to be, as I've played best ball longer and longer, I actually am worried about the week 15 guy, the week 16 guy. And I'm trying, there's two ways I'm trying to kind of modulate it. It's like, I think we need to be pretty clearly more open to later draft capital wide receivers, rookie wide receivers, who are completely free. Like, not getting on Puka last year is going to live with me forever. Like, why was I not fully in on Puka? And there were analysts who were. I wasn't one of them. That really, really bugs me. And it's because, like, he was a 5th round pick or whatever. That's really what it comes down to. Oh, he's a 5th round pick. But, like, you get the training camp drumbeat, rookie wide receiver, and a path to playing time. Like, I want to be in on that in a more aggressive way than I have been.
Yeah, I think that's more of like a purposeful structural approach to it, though, as opposed to like some guy early in the draft you think's way overdrafted and he just might have a spike week at the wrong time. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's very different in terms of like, you do want guys that are peaking at the end of the season, and that's like a good way to get those types of guys collectively. And Pat and I are completely aligned on, I think people still don't fully understand like how different best ball and redraft are in terms of like the different ways that you can win, how that expands the player pool. Like, it like triples the player pool of guys that you might draft, maybe even more than triples, honestly.
I think it should probably more than triple, because you're not worried about, like, in redraft, you really, like, that team we drafted, Jamar Chase's rookie year, Leone, which was like the best team I've ever been a part of, where the one where you did the alpha play.
Yeah.
Like, we just drafted like all
I think your
the guys.
bank account would disagree.
No, it's a better team than the one I won with, honestly, because that team went off in 1 week, which is what you need. But like, this team had every single guy like that you could have picked in that range. We're just like, yes, yes, yes. And that's how you win in redraft. You just like pick all the right guys, and you need to be trying to pick all the right guys. Like, you need to go, this dude's profile has so many red flags for him to be the guy. Why would I even consider him in the 4th round? Like, it's a wasted opportunity to draft a league winner. Like, where Jacob Sanderson's saying, when I take K. Dotton, now I only have 17 chances to draft a league winner. But it's like that, but in the 4th round or the 3rd round. And like, I think it makes sense in redraft to be pretty aggressive in that kind of mindset of like, I'm only looking at the league winners. But in best ball, if you get a guy who's a good hit and doesn't bust in round 4, round 5, round 6, like, that's potentially massive. You're keeping alive a parlay card that needs to go nuts in week 17, but it needs to get there. It needs to get there again, and it needs to get there again. Right. And it needs to show up healthy and put up a lot of points in a lineup that you haven't been able to manage since, potentially May. So I think it does. It naturally expands the player pool in a pretty significant way.
That's the biggest thing I think I've changed about my game, is that like expansion of the player pool. I came in and I thought like we're talking about like the things that we've learned, worried about, whatever. I thought like I was being thoughtful about, this game's very different, like this game's different. I try to read the rules, right? And like think about all this kind of stuff. Like, I always love the comp. Like, people fill out brackets for March Madness, and I feel like they don't even understand the game that they're playing. Like, they think like, I'm just going to pick all these upsets and pick, and it's like, honestly, you're like, you just lost. Like, the moment you click submit, you lost that bracket pool you were getting into. And I think people do that in best ball actually quite a bit, but I was doing it more than I probably even thought. And it's because of the expansion of the player pool idea. Like, I still had so much of that redraft mindset in the back of my head, just like, no, like, this 4th round pick is not supposed to be a 4th round pick. There are 5 other wide receivers who are better than him in this spot. I like the quarterbacks, I like the tight ends. And it's like, yeah, but he's not the Calvin Ridley example where we're like, okay, this is just truly a bad price. We can't see the upside case, etc. This would be like no, I think he's the 50th overall pick and he goes 43rd, like type of a situation where I'm just like, you are really making this so much harder on yourself, when you don't have to have 15% of that guy, but you don't have to pass on him when he falls 6 spots past ADP every single time as well. It's just so different that I'm not even sure like the three of us have fully wrapped our brains around I'm not sure anybody on the planet has wrapped their brains around just how different the game is from like the other formats of fantasy, because it's like so weird and chaotic and hard to comprehend,
Different in some counterintuitive ways too, where you kind of would think like, oh, it's best ball, I can just draft all ceiling because it's best ball scoring, like it doesn't matter. And it's like, well, no, in redraft that's actually more true, because you could just drop players and add guys and you're just trying to find the best 7 that you could possibly start ever, and that's like your sole goal. So it's definitely different. For me, I think one of the biggest changes I've made, and kind of talked about at the beginning, is just being careful with like taking like those assumptions for granted. The like, if this assumption's like, if this guy's the wide receiver 2, we're projecting it so conservatively, there's no way there's a bad pick. Like our inputs are so conservative, but there's like some sort of like more binary assumption that like could be wrong, and then it just derails the whole thing cripples from there. Like if you've got that base assumption wrong. Going back to the aren't you worried, just as we're talking, I think the case from a macro perspective that worries me the most though is whenever there's like a very straight line logical case for like an upside player, but you're just a little bit more worried of the odds of it happening in the market. Like those ones terrify me the most. And like we talked about Xavier Worthy, I guess that's one of them, where it's like, it's gonna look so bad if it's not that I care that it looks bad, like, but like
I care.
Like if it's it seems so obvious in hindsight. It's like first round draft capital, playing with Patrick Mahomes, Rashee Rice suspended, super fast player, like those cases where you're like, you see the same upside case as everybody else because it's very obvious and straight line, but you just think the odds are maybe like not as high as the market does. Like those are the terrifying fades, and I've been on the right side of those and the wrong side of those, and those can be like,
it's a good one.
Pretty scary.
Pickens is that to me, and I basically was just like, I don't think I want to do this like I'm doing it. And so I currently have 2% Pickens, but I'm in a ton of slow puppies, and I'm taking him, I don't know, like I'm probably taking 4% or 5% of them there. Like I'm not hammering, but I'm just trying to get a little bit more of them, because like there are these dudes where like Pickens is so obvious, like in retrospect, like they talked all summer about they didn't have any other wide receivers, and he's good. Like, do you think he's good? Like, yeah, I think he's probably pretty good. I mean, maybe he's really good. I don't know. And then it's like, oh, well, it turns out, yeah, he is really good. And the quarterback play was better. And Arthur Smith is going to run too much, but he also has supported, a wide receiver 1 in that offense at times, especially when it was AJ Brown. So if the dude is good, like he could eat, and there's no target competition is really Pat Freiermuth is really his biggest target competition. So I don't think I can get to, especially because he's moving up. He was more at the 4 or 5 turn. Now he's like in the middle of the 4th. So as I've become more open-minded, he's now moving up, which is always the toughest. Like this was Calvin Ridley last year. It was like, okay, fine. I'll take him at the 3-4 turn, guys. It's like, oh, he's at the 1-2 turn now. Like, what?
Right. Yeah.
So yeah,
it's also the
2-3 turn, but
the opposite of that sometimes is hard too, where it's like we're comfortably below ADP on a guy, we don't have to worry about him. And then the ADP creators, and it's like that's like Aaron Jones for us. Like we were so behind Aaron Jones when the draft season started that I was like, I'm just not going to have to worry about this at all. And now I've been in a few drafts where I'm like, well, his
pick
ADP
92, Aaron Jones,
pick 92, and I got a Packer, and it's like, well, maybe it's not so bad, like, so
Mm-hmm.
it's hard being very price conscious because, the strength of the bet compared to the other bets is like what you're looking at. And that can change if the guy goes 10 picks later or earlier. But at the same time, sometimes it's easier to just be like, I like this guy, I'm going to take a lot of them versus I don't like this guy, I'm not going to take him. And
Yeah.
again, that goes back, I think, a little bit to the redraft best ball thing being somewhat different.
I mean, one of my guys is Pittman, right? I just think Pittman really is like a 6th round type of bet, but he goes in the 3rd round. So I'm just like, I'm not going to have any. In redraft, when you're in a draft, right, you're basically just like hoping to see Pittman's name like go off. So that's like one guy that I don't have to, right? Someone else I like will fall to me. As soon as I see Pittman, I'm psyched.
Yeah, that's good.
In best ball, like if Pittman falls to the 4th, the middle of the 4th, I'm starting to think about it, and I'm starting to think about it in ways like where I'm like, okay, if when it comes back around and it's like 508, Richardson will be here. Like I can take Richardson. So now, and Pittman helps give me the flexibility as a wide receiver to take Richardson. So, maybe I went, I got a Brees, and then it's wide receiver, Pittman in the 4th. And now I can grab Richardson in the 5th. That's like a fun start. And so
Neighbors on there. You're getting frothy.
Oh, Neighbors fell to me in the 3rd. Hell yeah. So or I really reached in the 2nd.
Or he took it in the 2nd. Yeah. If he goes in the 2nd,
have the
on
players
drafters,
you don't like at least you have it at the best cost, right?
Right.
Like
yes, exactly.
A better Pittman, a rich,
and you stack it. You build it. You build it like. I think sometimes when I have a player I don't want, that's when you're like, it's all right. It's time to focus. Like I'm gonna build the shit out of this team. Like this is how many Pittman teams am I gonna have all year? Not many. So like now it's time to like drill down. It's like your most focused, the easiest to be focused is when you get that. Like I have one stack and it's in a big dog, which is just amazing. But I have one of the Kelsey Worthy Mahomes. I'm obviously when I saw that team, I was just like full brain engaged. Like don't fuck this up. But like the other time I think to do that, I mean, obviously if we could do it all the time, we should. But like one time to prioritize it is like when you have a guy you rarely take. Like don't, because I think there's the temptation. I've talked about this in the past, but there's a temptation to be like, who else I don't take? This other dude and this other dude and this other dude, and just have a hedge team. Like, don't make a hedge team. Build a team that you're like psyched about that includes a player you don't take very often and includes a scenario that would be like very plausible for why that player is going to crush this season because he's on your team, so he's going to crush now.
One of my favorite examples.
I love that.
From DFS. Again, I know Leone and I just recorded a show where he talked about DFS. I'm trying to be better. I make fun of the poker people because all they ever do is, make poker references in best ball. And I'm just like, guys, these games are so not different. We get it. You played poker. I get it. Right. You had a full tilt account. Cool. But I do the same. I do the exact same thing with DFS. It's like, well, remember Leone, remember that 2018 DFS slate, where we did this or whatever? It's like, just shut up. But DFS. So Ship My Money, DFS, Adam Scher is a good friend of mine. And he tells the story about like he had his very first big win. And he did exactly what Pat just talked about, where this works in DFS, but it does work in DFS so well. Like he just played his like optimal lineup. And then at point guard, I'm going to screw up the exact one for one. But like Russell Westbrook was 60% owned, and he just took Russell Westbrook out and he put John Wall in. He said, John Wall is 3% owned. He's like, I'm playing the optimal, but every single other person plays Russell Westbrook in this spot. Right. And that's what Patterson, like when I take Pittman, because I'm only going to have like 4 Michael Pittman teams all summer, I don't want to turn the Pittman team into, okay, let's take Ridley. And let's take, and let's take Rashad White, and let's take it. It's like, no, you're just throwing it in the garbage. Let's be like, we talk about humility-based drafting stuff. Like, okay, I've accepted, I could be wrong about Michael Pittman on this team. let's build the best version of the possible Michael Pittman team that exists in my little universe. Let's not just throw it in the garbage and say, well, I hate this guy, so I'm going to tank this draft, and get all the other crappy players on there. It's like, no, let's build the best version of that Michael Pittman team, because if you happen to be wrong about it, but your process was good overall that summer, it's like that's the one that binks the whole thing.
You're betting on yourself still. You're hoping to turn over the cards and be like, oh yeah, this guy's, I'm not shocked that I have a team in the finals. I had a good year. It's got Pittman on it. And it's like, that's what you want. And it's like, oh my God, Pittman's actually the guy I was probably most wrong about, this whole season. And he's on my finals team. Like that's what you're trying to bank when you take him.
You probably had that on your winning team last year. I've had it on any best ball team I've ever drafted that has done well. Pretty much has a player where I was like, yeah, like maybe not that I hated to the Pittman level, but
I didn't have much Brady. I didn't have much Brady in Best Ball Mania 3. I didn't have a ton. Probably just Leone in my ear is the only reason I took him at all.
Best quarterback of all time, you dumb shit. Yeah. Stop hating him.
And then famously, I didn't take any Tyquan. He was in my only share of Tyquan.
Oh,
Thornton.
yeah.
The only time I took Tyquan Thornton. But I took him as part of this big Patriots thing.
Yeah.
I do love, though, the idea of like when you're taking these players, you don't like have it mesh with the construction like as strong as possible. And you wind up in spots where it's like, usually I don't need a running back here, but I do. So like now's the time for me to get exposure to like X running back, or like with George Pickens, it's like, oh, I took 2 non-wide receivers in the first 3 rounds. I'm going to have to pound wide receiver. Sometimes I'll just take it in order of ADP because I'm like, I got to get as many wide receivers as possible. Let me increase my odds of one falling by just taking the earliest one by ADP. And like, that's a spot where I'll get, a receiver I normally wouldn't take in because I'm just so desperate, for that position. And I just want to draft them all in a row as much as possible.
The other thing, I think your brain doesn't do, it only wants to consider a certain amount of possibilities, right? And so when you take a guy, you necessarily consider the possibility that he's going to be good that year. And maybe you're like, no, he won't after you take him. But like, I wasn't drafting a ton of AD Mitchell. So I was like, I feel like he should fall a little bit more based on how the draft went for him and everything. And he did fall, but I was like, I kind of wanted a little bit more of a discount. So I was like, I like Josh Downs. I'll just take Josh Downs, But like, I made an effort to try to get more AD Mitchell when I had Richardson. Training camp reports have been good so far, and I'm like, okay, yeah, this feels pretty good, actually. Like, I kind of think I like this at 114. Like, even if I don't have Richardson, I'm pretty open to taking Mitchell. Like, I should have been more open to it all along, actually. So, like, getting yourself to take a guy in a stack is how I think the easiest way to do this. So you're like, I'm going to take Josh Palmer, right? I don't want to take Josh Palmer. He's the most boring pick ever. But I take him with Herbert, right? If I have Ladd, or I take him with Ladd, and then I set up Herbert. But I do that, and then now I'm in a situation where I've got Rashee Rice, and I've got Rome Odunze, and maybe I have Xavier Worthy too, right? So I'm like, I kind of need
makes sense.
Josh Palmer. I'm glad I'm glad he's in my player pool now, because once you take a guy and you think through the upside case, he kind of becomes part of your player pool in a sense. And having that as a potential thing that you can turn to in certain situations is extremely useful.
So I got it's kind of similar to this, where we're talking about guys that we don't necessarily love and, how to draft them and all that kind of stuff. Something that worries me fairly frequently is actually a little bit of the inverse, where if I don't like a player, or I don't like a pocket of the draft, right? Or when there's something I dislike, so take our Calvin Ridley example. If I hate the price on Calvin Ridley, it doesn't just mean I'm taking 0 Calvin Ridley. That inherently means I'm taking more of other players that go around there, right? And then, but we're preaching diversification, and I'm constantly preaching like the player combinations and stuff. Like, go to my Twitter every other day as a new like, oh my god, why do all my like this morning I have Justin Jefferson over Amon-Ra St. Brown, and so I don't actually get as much Amon-Ra for whatever, and maybe it's just variance or whatever. So I don't have a lot of Amon-Ra teams, and I was looking at them this morning. I'm like, literally 100% of them have Devontae Adams. There's no reason for that to be the case. So I'm constantly preaching like the player combos, and we're talking about diversification and all that. But if we have fades and stances on certain players or structural things that we're doing, you naturally kind of move away from diversification, and you naturally move to like, all of a sudden I have 25% of this guy, and I'm like, I like them, but I don't want my season dependent upon that guy. Like, if we talk about worries, like that is a thing that worries me. But also, like, I want to press my edges, but I don't want to press things that I didn't necessarily believe were that thing in a vacuum. You know what I mean? Like, that balancing act is like really brutal to manage over the summer.
Yeah, the player combo one I have the most difficult time with, for sure. Like, we talked about it on our DFS to best ball pod, and I'm still like sometimes in some spots at the 1-2 turn where I'm like, I'm not taking
London and Marv again
over Drake London.
Yeah,
like,
London and Marv.
I'm not doing it. I'm just taking Drake London here, and so be it. You know, and I just, it's tough for sure, and it is scary.
No, I'm drafting Marv. I mean, come on. You know who his dad is, right? You know who his dad is? Marvin Harrison?
These are teams with Marv already, Pat.
I misunderstood. I thought you were saying you weren't drafting Marv and you were drafting Drake.
Like a lot. Like, I'm not drafting like Olave. I'm not like reaching down to like Olave or Adams, you know, to come
Nico.
up. You get in that spot.
No, I'm not either.
Where I'm just kind of accepting that I have a lot of combos of like Garrett Wilson, Drake London, Marvin Harrison. Like, they're just going to be tied together a lot. And
I am considering
probably not the right thing to do, but I just can't bring myself to.
And then 3-4 turn combos are the same, and then it starts to deviate after. It's really kind of the first 4 rounds where like the same players are drafted together constantly in all of these drafts. And so being Leone and I both kind of got simultaneously worried on that pod he was talking about, where it's like, I'm worried about having the same goddamn teams that I'm trying to beat hundreds of thousands of other teams, and I'm drafting the same first 4 round players together as everyone else. That is terrifying. That's ridiculous. We would never do that in DFS, right? That's stupid. We would never do that. But then if I don't do it, I'm like, am I going to be underweight Drake London? Am I going to be underweight Marvin Harrison? You know, you're like, but I want them.
Two evils.
Like, there's no right answer.
I think in the time box tournaments, I'm doing a little bit, like, I've done this only probably once or twice, but if you're taking, let's say you're at the 107 or the 108 and you're not going to draft Bijan or Brees, and you're going to take a receiver instead, I've taken Garrett Wilson there.
Yeah, me too.
Because I'm like, all right, that breaks up the combo.
Leone should take London there. I think Leone should sprinkle London there.
Take a little London there. Actually, I don't know. I would play for him to come back. But Garrett Wilson never, ever comes back. Like, Garrett Wilson never comes back to the middle of the second.
But if you want London with Olave or with Nico or something like that, and like, I understand it feels uncomfortable to do that there, but you want to naturally make it happen, and then also have the 3rd round and the 4th round and the 5th round guy be like, you don't have to like, the moment you took you pulled London up, you don't have to do shit like, you can just take all your favorite players from there on, and it's unique. You don't have to worry about anything.
But I wouldn't even really consider doing that ahead of Amon-Ra or Jefferson at 106. Like, no. It's more about like, all right, am I willing to take a receiver over these running backs? Because I'm kind of playing the room, and I know it's going to be super receiver heavy. Mm-hmm. If I am, which often I'm not, but if I am, why not make it a receiver that's going to give me a unique combo kind of thing? Like, it's a very specific spot in a puppy that we know the puppies get super wide receiver heavy. So it's like a hyper specific thing, but generally I'm not super worried about.
I'm not touting this as like this is the linchpin of your strategy. I'm just saying, if you believe in Drake London, don't take all of your Drake London teams the exact same way. I don't want my whole portfolio, right? I believe in Drake London. I want to have 15% Drake London or whatever. I want to be double the field, right? I don't want all of that. I don't want those 100 teams to literally all look the same, not only in my own portfolio, but compared to there's tens of thousands of Drake London teams. They're all also the same.
I have a hard time. I definitely have a hard time at like the first 2 picks doing that. I get mega flexible at like even starting like 3-4 turn, that type of stuff. And that's where I'm hoping that like, even if I might have heavy overlap, I'm rationalizing for sure. But like, even if I have heavy overlap with those first 2 players, like I'm confident that a lot of my teams like start to diverge from there at least, because
you can get fallers. You can get fallers. If there isn't a faller, you can manufacture it. Thereafter, it's really not that hard. So that's why I'm not pulling. We talked about this also, right? I'm not pulling that lever much. I'm being intentional about it. And I do think, like Pat said, kind of that 7-8 spot, depending upon, if you're a little bit more like we are, where, I mean, I like Bijan and Breece. I'm just drafting a lot more 0 running back teams. So I'm saying I'm naturally willing to draft more of the wide receivers at that spot over Bijan and Breece. If you agree with that, let's mix it up a couple times. Let's not go crazy, but let's not just take AJ Brown or take Puka right at cost and then take them with Chris Olave, in the second round. It's like, don't just be a robot type of a situation. So I wanted to ask you one more thing. And Pat will be back in a minute and we can wrap with this. If there's something, so it's a 2-parter. If there's something this year specific to 2024 that you are absolutely the most worried about, right, from a team, player, anything we talked about here today, what would that thing be that you're the most worried about? And then what is the thing that maybe, you've seen other people worried about, or you think the market is worried about, or whatever, that you're maybe not as worried about as everybody else seems to be?
So the thing I'm most, it's hard because I don't know if it's like the thing that would be most negatively impactful, or the thing that
just scares
most
you.
Legitimately concerned I'm wrong about.
Yeah.
I guess because it funnels down to so many players and so many exposures and builds, but like if the Jacksonville offense is bad, that would be incredibly bad for my portfolio. I'm not someone that takes a bunch of huge stands, but I'm overweight, basically every Jacksonville player in the passing game. So that would be, and that's obviously like a correlated bet that reaches out to many of my teams, whether it's stacked on those specific teams or not. So,
or on the opposite side of your Hopkins teams, then it's on the opposite side of your Hopkins teams. And then it actually hurts your Hopkins teams because the Jaguar, it's a 12-6 game in week 17. Everything is spirals at that point.
Yeah. Like Gabe Davis is a guy I know I have an outlier opinion on, where like he's like the opposite of the case I was saying, the case that's so simple positively for a player. Like, I think the case against Gabe Davis is like pretty simple. It's like, oh, he just ran all the routes on Buffalo. Now he's got more competition on a worse team. Like, how could this possibly work? So like that one I'm worried about, but just the way they are like pretty condensed with their top 3 wide receivers, I still think like he can oddly get there. And, I think he still has like good touchdown upside, even moving from Allen to Lawrence. So like that one, I'm definitely worried about the Jacksonville stuff and Gabe in particular, because the Gabe case it's very simple case against him. As far as the one that the market's worried about that I'm not, is probably Kyle Pitts. I mean, I did mention like bringing up to Gretsch, like, is there like some Juju Smith-Schuster things with him? Honestly, the biggest concern with Kyle Pitts is just that like there's 7 good tight ends. So if like you're really heavy Kyle Pitts, you might not be as heavy on the others. But right now I'm kind of like really heavy Kyle Pitts and then just like in line with all the other guys. So I just really think that the way this offense operates is going to be so different. I know the market's taking that into account, like in a pretty big way, if you look at the ADPs, but I still think with Pitts in particular, they're just a little bit too gun shy on him. And I'm not really gun shy right now. The price is starting to creep up a little bit, unfortunately, but that's what happens.
He's just in that weird wide receiver pocket where we talked about a bunch of wide receivers there that it's like, okay, Ladd, Keon, Rome, Ridley, it's like, so he kind of has naturally moved up
Right.
a little bit. But Pat, in case I know you stepped away, what I asked Leone to close this out is one thing in 2024 drafts that you are the most worried about. You can define that however you want. The thing that you are absolutely the most worried about in 2024, and then the thing that relative to like market or what you think other people are worried about, you are the least worried about.
Well, on the Pitts thing, I was just going to chime in and say I wish the market would get a little bit more worried, because I was doing the opposite of Leone and taking, well, still am taking a lot of Kelsey. I like McBride. I really like Andrews. I like Kincaid, who sometimes falls to the late 5th. And then Pitts now is going in the late 5th, really. He's at 5-6 turn. So can we go back to mid-6th Pitts? Let's get a little worried. You guys know he hasn't done anything since his rookie year, right? This guy's never scored a touchdown in his life.
He's the Juju Smith-Schuster of tight ends, forever 21 and never does anything.
I'm actually underweight, and I don't like that at all. So he's a guy I'm prioritizing right now. The thing I'm probably most worried about, let's see, I don't love kind of the late rounds, and like maybe I'm wondering, like, am I missing the guy in the late rounds? Like, you know, it doesn't strike me in the late rounds. I'm taking like Javon Baker is my second highest drafted receiver, but that's kind of because I'm just betting on the Patriots. Jalen Polk is right behind him, and I've got 18% Drake May. So, I've got 18% Drake May, 15% Herbert, 11% Allen. Everyone else 10% or lower. So I'm not even making quarterback stands really, except with May and then Herbert, who's on the other side of that game, which is also just kind of betting on May. But so that's one way I'm playing the late rounds. But I'm like, I don't know, like there's someone in this range that's going to be one of the dudes, and I don't have a good feel really for who that is. I don't think it's probably Baker. I just think he's a correlated thing, a correlated guy on a bet I'm already making. So I guess I'm just like, that's what I'm probably most worried about right now, is that I have not correctly identified the league winners in like rounds 15, 16, 17, 18, because we're going to need those. And we talk about how different the format is. We look at the winning teams on these in every year. Production in the final roster spots has been a theme, and sometimes huge production, like with Amon-Ra,
Penny, Kyron.
Yeah, Penny, Kyron. Like, yeah, I mean, you kind of had to have Kyron. It's not optional. Like, you have to find these guys. So that's probably my biggest worry is it's still June. Training camp hasn't happened yet. Hopefully we'll get that information. But right now I don't feel like there's a dude to like truly flag plant once you get into like the 16th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, that range. Jalen Polk maybe just ahead of that. I'm getting decently close to truly like being like I want to go like heavy, but after that it gets a little thinner. So that's what I'm pretty worried about whiffing on. What am I not worried about? I'm not worried about attacking the early tight ends. And I'm not worried about being underweight a lot of these early running backs. I think the
God damn it, Pat.
Sorry. I think the pocket of this, I guess it really comes down to like this pocket of running backs starting in like round 7, which, by the way, I mean, like, I've gotten Kenneth Walker now multiple times in the 7th round. Joe Mixon, I've gotten in the late 6th in some of these puppies. This is a little bit of a puppy dynamic, but when you're getting Kenneth Walker in the middle of the 7th, like, what you need out of a running back in the 3rd or 4th round is you need a lot. You need a lot from that guy to make up for the fact that I just got Kenneth Walker in the 7th, plus, I've got better wide receivers than you. Like, I think this is, we've not done this before, that this level of running back bet available around 7th plus. So we can talk about the Josh Jacobs thing. Like, that was an isolated case of one guy who fell too far. Like, there's like 8 Josh Jacobs this year or more. There might be a dozen Josh Jacobs level bets available at cheaper than Josh Jacobs went in the same season. Like, for real. So that's that pocket. I think building your teams to hit that pocket hard and be ready to hit the pocket where you're not overweight at running back the second you take one from the pocket. That's something I'm not worried about.
I love that, and I'm gonna piggyback on that because that was to answer my own question. The thing I am starting with the thing I am least worried about. People will ask. I told it the kind of side story a little bit earlier where somebody was like, "Aren't you worried you're not going to have Christian McCaffrey?" And it's like, I mean, I guess sure. Like I it's possible that Christian McCaffrey is scores 1 million points in the playoffs and has an awesome season. I mean, I expect him. I'm not a moron. I have him 4th overall. I expect him to have an awesome season. He's fucking Christian McCaffrey. But everything that Pat just outlined is like the thing I'm not worried about is I know how good the running backs are later. It's like, dude, Leone was even saying like you were light on Aaron Jones. ETR's light on Aaron Jones, and it's like, poof, you're light on Aaron Jones. Tough shit, buddy. Now he's available in the 90s. It's like like every one of these guys. And so, what's great about it is now I don't have to pick, like you said. Before I had to find Josh Jacobs, and we were wrong about that, and that was stupid. And I'm happy to admit that. But it would be 1 or 2 guys where it was like, we got to spot that. Pat, you and I talked last week about if we're going down, we're skiing in front of the avalanche, and you got to stick your arm out and pick the one thing. They got to find the one thing. It used to be that way, but not structurally. With the one running back, like find that one running back from round 7 to round 12 or whatever. Now, like, dude, the starting running back for half of the NFL teams is available in that range. The 1B back, the contingent value bet that's there, the 2nd round pick rookie, the RB1 in this rookie class, the RB2 in this rookie class. You want them? There's 35 guys available in those rounds. And so I don't even have to be that. I just have to be directionally accurate. And I think even the running back bros would tell you, Aaron Jones or Mondre Stevenson, all these guys look great, or if you want to move it a little bit forward, right? Isaiah Pacheco, Joe. I just did I'm in a slow draft. I just took Joe Mixon in the 6th round and pushed CJ Stroud around the corner when I had Nico and Mark Andrews. I was just like, I think Stroud will fall, and Mixon just fell almost 2 rounds. So let's take Mixon, push Stroud, right? It's just this
I've
dynamic.
Seen Stroud go late 7th in some of these puppies.
I took him at 76 overall or something
Crazy.
like that. He just falls. But like Mixon fell in that draft. It's like there are so many names that I don't have to pick the league winners. Like I'm gonna get them naturally just by understanding that this pocket even exists. And how do I benefit the most from that? It's like, look, I'm just going to be a little light on the early running backs, and so be it. I can live with that. I'm not worried. I could lose, but I'm not worried about that because it's the thing I feel the most confident in.
Think about like in 2020, 2019, like we were in an environment where, we were talking about 10 running backs in the 1st round, like literally. I pulled up a draft of mine from 2020. I shared in an article. Literally 10 running backs went in the 1st round, and then 2 more running backs to start round 2. And like, I think the wide receiver 5 was in the late 2nd rounds. Like it's hard to like communicate how different it really is. And it's also the thing that was also kind of crazy that doesn't really happen anymore is that people like didn't respect like the idea of hyperfragile either. Like people talk about robust. I want robust running back. I took running back, wide receiver, running back, waited until the 9th, and then I took another running back, and I have 4 total. Like I don't know. It's like you went like slightly aggressive, hyperfragile. I guess that's not robust running. Robust running back used to be like 6, 7. I mean, you will see some weird teams like this on Underdog, 6, 7, 8 running backs and stuff. Like that was, or 5 straight running backs. Like that's robust running back. And in these rooms, and you will still sometimes get this in like the FFPC streets, but it's less common over there than it used to be. But like you would be in round 7 and you wouldn't have a running back and you'd be like, it's fine. I got my target lined up. And then like a guy who had 4 running backs would take Trey Benson. And you're like, God damn it. Like this is the last guy with upside. Like so now you're taking like Blake Corum in the 7th or 8th. Like that is the environment that we used to be in. Like when we were talking about going 0 running back, like that's what we meant. Trey Benson RB1 in the 8th round or 7th round, right? Blake Corum RB1 in the 8th or 9th round, like that kind of build. But this is just not that. This is not that. When you're getting Ramondre Stevenson in the 8th round, I mean, yeah, he's on the Patriots at bad offensive line, but like they just signed him to a new contract and he's going to get a ton of work.
He went at the 2-3 turn last year.
He went the 2-3 turn. Like he's still pretty young. Like this is just, these are hyper fragile backs. These are dudes, Leone, that you've talked about. Like, hey, talk about usable weeks. Like you can grab Ramondre, you can grab Aaron Jones, you can grab Najee Harris, and that's a hyper fragile team. That you just grab 3 of those guys. Like I've been trying to think, like, can I stop at 4 when I grab 3 of those guys? And can I do 0 running back and then stop at 4? Because I was told I could stop at 4 3 years ago with these same
profiles. Well, we talk about trying to build super teams, and this year the avenue to doing that is greater than it's ever been before because it does require some deviation from receiver, but I've got teams where it's like 3 wide receiver out of the gate, but then I've still got a hyper fragile running back build with an elite quarterback and an elite tight end.
Yes.
Like that's doable. You're obviously 4th, 5th, 6th wide receivers aren't going to be as good as some other teams that went super wide receiver heavy, but you've drafted 3 to start, and now you can kind of do the old hyper fragile strategy where you still draft a lot of wide receivers, except you paired that with a lot of quality early too, as opposed to like not having the quality early. And you can build these teams as like you could have the best 2 wide receivers, the best running back, the best quarterback, and the best tight end for the whole season on one team. Like those teams weren't possible before. So the rooms are really interesting in terms of like how you want to try to accomplish that, if you even want to try to accomplish that, but it's definitely an option that wasn't available before.
So to get kind of back to the late round idea, I think this is part of the reason why I'm wrestling with the late rounds so much is that like, okay, so now I've got wide receiver firepower early. I didn't go nuts at wide receiver because I also I'm strong. I've got a quarterback 1, a tight end 1 from the early-ish rounds. And then I hammered the wide receiver or hammered that running back pocket. So I've got like 3 or 4 running backs that I feel like really good about. So I kind of done if I want to be at running back.
Yeah.
What do I even need? Like what I'm getting to like round 16. I'm like, I'm done. I don't need any more picks. Like what should I be spending this on? Like tight end?
Should I be points if I get my roster spots
rookie
back?
wide receivers though. Like you can get
rookie
like
wide receivers,
Allen and Javon Baker. Like you can tack those guys on. Previously what maybe you would have done like a 6-7 wide receiver build. Now it's an 8 wide receiver team and you've saved 2 wide receiver picks for the very end sort of thing is what I've been doing. I've also like, if I get to like even like the Purdy area, Lawrence, Caleb, like I'll try and stack 3 quarterbacks and use another pick on QB.
Yep.
If I take an elite tight end, I still have a hard time taking a 3rd though. So I don't know if you guys do that.
I'm willing to do it because I'm like, it's pure luxury. And, talk about the position where you get in the end zone and that's sort of enough, like a Jonnu Smith, who I like, a Noah Fant. There's guys down there. I'm like, yeah, I could see you powering me to a spike week. And so, it's kind of the aren't you worried, but in reverse, where I'm just like, because the tight end, that's the easiest way to kind of bink it. I think if you just get that touchdown
a little more than
they do.
Positions, like that's like an actual thing.
You could maybe get leverage with the elite tight end, sneaking them in when a lot of people don't have them. But I like the 3rd quarter. I did a Mahomes team. That Mahomes team I talked about, I built out a big Saints bet. And then I got to the end and I had Patriots as well. So I took Drake May. I was like, this is like a pure luxury pick, but again, that was a big dog. Is a bit more about like advance rate and stuff. And I'm like, Drake May's, I think, going to play a lot this year. Like these are points. I think I'm adding points to the roster, but I'm finding myself feeling like these are more luxurious picks in the last rounds than I'm used to. But I like the rookie wide receiver angle. That's probably the best way to play it.
My counter to some of that is, if it is a luxury, and if we know that these late round guys are impactful, right? Like Pat, you mentioned that it's table stakes that once we get to the finals, like I need somebody from
or two
those
have
late
gotten
rounds.
there as well.
Yeah, or to right, exactly. Like if you didn't, I know Kyron wasn't quite that, but Amon-Ra, Rashad Penny, like man, it was going to be really tough to Laporta. It was going to be really tough to get there if you didn't have those guys.
Yeah,
and so, and then I feel like they are luxuries, especially on Underdog in half-point PPR. Like I'm more willing to whiff on running backs. Like I'm more willing to take some of these guys when like in past years, like you mentioned, like my RB1 was Blake Corum. Like I don't have any running back production. Like I can't whiff. Like I just cannot give away this 18th round pick on Rasheen Ali, and he's the third running back for the Ravens all season. But now my first 4 running backs are Aaron Jones and Ramondre Stevenson and Zach Moss. And it's like,
it's a good point.
Maybe
we can whiff a little more.
Let's swing, baby. Let's swing for the home run. Because like really, who gives a shit? Like, okay, he doesn't become something. I can still bink it, right? Like the tight end thing. Like I can Rasheen Ali, Derrick Henry could be out for week 17, but like I didn't need him beforehand, but nobody else drafts that guy because they're like, look at my running backs, dude. Look at how good they are. I don't care. I don't need him. I don't want to screw this up, right? I want to land the plane. Right. We all want to land the plane, so we don't want to screw it up. And I'm kind of like, the plane's been landed. We landed a minute ago. We're just being taxed.
Cracking a beer.
Yeah. Like I just asked the gal to come bring me another beer because we're being taxied around
You're just sitting there.
The tarmac. I'm sitting on the fucking tarmac for a half hour waiting for this damn draft to be over. So I'm like, might as well risk it with a beer, right? Rather than a water. I don't need a water. John, who's my water, give me Rasheen Ali or whatever. That's another, the whiskey soda or something. Like, I'm being stupid, but I am pushing it a little bit more with like some stuff because it's like you said, dude, through 16 rounds, I'm like, I love everything. Like this team's already good. And I never had that. That has never existed before.
Yeah. The biggest aren't you worried guy for me in a way is Kamani Vidal. And maybe I should be more in on him as a way of like, once you've got, I've basically done it running back, so why not take a swing on Vidal? But I just wanted to shout this out. Kyle Dvorak this morning, all caps, in our rankings chat said 3 biggest Chargers beat reporters have not tweeted the word Vidal since April. That makes me worried.
And J.K. Dobbins can't even walk yet, and the guy's not even getting any.
And Gus Edwards isn't practicing; he's hurt.
Bad.
How have we not heard about Vidal? So that's that. But that is probably that kind of sums up. That kind of probably closes it out. But the Vidal one kind of sums up. Like I am so worried about him. It was like I know I need these late rounds. I know that like a running back from this exact spot could be a smash, but he's just like a 6th round guy who's not all that great of a prospect, and we haven't heard about since April. So I'm like, which direction do I go here? So hopefully we'll get more information.
100%. I was
in training camp.
To finish I was going to say the thing that I am massive, right? If I'm not worried about Christian McCaffrey burying me, which is not a very sane take to have. But the thing that I am worried is like, if I'm not worried about that stuff, it's like the trickle down effect of like, okay, if I believe in that running back pocket, I'm drafting in a certain way. I'm taking tons of elite tight ends. I'm taking tons of elite quarterbacks. I'm taking, I'm skipping a range of wide receivers that like, I like those guys. Like I got no problem with, the Josh Downs, right. Range of running backs. It's just, I end up light. I end up overweight on certain things and underweight on certain things because of this take that I'm very confident in, right? So I'm constantly trying to like check myself and balance that. But we got to run. We all got to get out of here. Mike, anything specific coming up over at ETR to shout to the people?
Yeah, just I got all my content going up there, finishing my update of the Best Ball Manifesto from last year. Not nearly as robust, but just trying to kind of repeat what I did last year and spot if there's any like meaningful differences year over year. So hoping by the end of the month, end of this week, I guess, to have parts 2 and 3 out. Part 1, looking at stacking's already up.
Beautiful. Pat?
We are working on Sacrilegious is working on an article on the week 16 versus 17 game stacking concept with the idea of like, the lever we have is these game stacks, and does that lever help us more in week 17 than week 16? So he's gone in the lab on that. I think that'll be out later this week. And yeah, we launched our dynamic best ball rankings last week, the Sidekick. You can check that out at legendaryupside.com/sidekick. And I'm going to be working on a follow-up piece to an article that I had on the early round running backs, basically looking at, how big of opportunity costs are these running backs? Are these historical anomalies, these prices? And can we get this profile later? I'm going to apply a similar approach to that running back pocket. Like, how weird are these prices?
I like that. Yeah, that's a good one. Shout the Sidekick is a great companion with the Spike Week tools, which of course you can get 40% off with promo code LEGUP if you are subscribed to Legendary Upside.
People have asked, how do I know my exposures on the Sidekick?
Yeah, exactly. If you have the draft hacker,
you use the draft hacker as well. It's 40% off promo code LEGUP.
I've also had folks saying they blend the ETR, the leg up, and the Spike Week ranks, because what you'll find, despite the fact that Leone is the spreadsheet socialist Rashad Perriman guy, apparently is what everybody thinks. There's a lot of directional accuracy that's very, very similar, but like some little differences that go throughout it. And I got some folks in our Discord that were like they love like seeing the different guys. That's like, we're very directionally the same, but then this guy, Pat's 10 ahead and I'm 10 behind, and Leone's at ADP, or vice versa, and kind of seeing the little subtle nuances. So all these things I think are fun to bring together. Again, promo code LEGUP on Spike Week for 40% off. That's going to do it. That is the show. We'll see you guys next week here on Legendary Sickos. Have a good one.